In a chaotic world where wars never ended, martial arts decided everything. Strength was the only rule. The weak were crushed, and the strong ruled. At the very top stood a legendary warrior called the Fist King Asura. He was pure power and destruction. No one could match him. One day, he faced an enemy army of 100,000 soldiers alone. Their general mocked him, calling him a demon and asking if he had come to die. The general laughed and said one man could never stop so many. Asura turned his back, sneered, and repeated, 100,000. To him, the number meant nothing. He said relying on large numbers only showed they could never truly defeat him. Furious, the general ordered the attack. But Asura, unarmed and alone, released a massive wave of energy with one move. It destroyed the entire army and even shattered the battlefield. He was unstoppable. One by one, the greatest masters of the time fell before him. Finally, Asura conquered the whole land with his fists and united it under his rule. He created the Shura kingdom, with its beautiful capital city called Manhwa, far away on a lonely mountain. Under the moonlight, a blue light glowed. A woman named Manhwa met Asura there. She knelt, congratulated him on his victory, and said the world was now safe under his rule. Asura grew impatient and told her to speak plainly. Manhwa said he was the only person in history to unite the land by strength alone. No title like God of War was big enough for him anymore. She said she had called him there to give him a special gift, a secret manual of immense power that only he could master. Curious, Asura touched it. Suddenly, red liquid burst out and his blood dropped on magical liquid and magical chains appeared from nowhere. And they approached towards the Asura. They wrapped tightly around his arms and legs, binding him. Shocked by the betrayal, Asura struggled, but the chains were too strong. Manhwa smiled and said his rule was over. From that day, she would be queen. Asura glared silently. Looked at her. Then, anger rising, he reminded her who he was, the chosen one of heaven, the embodiment of destruction. Manhwa sensed danger and shouted for her allies to activate a magic barrier. But it was too late. Asura broke the chains with explosive force and punched forward. Red energy covered Asura's fist and face and his whole body force to froze him in place. Asura released even more power, but the red energy turned against him and swallowed him whole. The traders watched as Asura was completely sealed away. They knelt before Manhwa and hailed her as the new queen of the Shura kingdom. So the great Fist King Asura, ruler of the world, met a sad and lonely end. In the darkness, a system window suddenly appeared, asking someone to become a player. But a pair of fists smashed it to pieces. The scene changes. A young man named Yuda looks confused, unsure what just happened. A small fairy flies near him and shouts, Yuda, watch out. A huge dragon-like monster bursts from the shadows and attacks him. Yuda quickly draws his sword and dodges the strike. The monster's powerful blow still pushes him back, but he digs his sword into the ground to steady himself. The beast prepares to breathe fire. The system warns that the attack will take 2 seconds. Yuda has no time to fully react and is shocked, but he holds his ground. Flames explode toward him. Just in time, his system guide analyzes the attack and grants him strong fire resistance. He walks out of the flames completely unhurt. Yuda charges forward. His holy sword of Asterion glows brightly. He calls down a pillar of heavenly light and releases the attack. The beam strikes the monster's head, slicing it apart and defeating the beast. The system announces, Floor 998 boss defeated. Quest complete. Yuda takes a deep breath and says the fight was harder than he expected. The fairy notices his worried face and asks what is wrong. She smiles cheerfully and says only the top floor remains, they will soon be free and can see their families again. Yuda smiles back, but something still troubles him. It has been 3 years since he was summoned to this tower. Only one final challenge is left. So close to the end. He wonders what waits at the top. The fairy calls to him again. He shakes his head to clear his thoughts, touches the huge door, pushes it open, and steps onto the tower's final floor. No matter what waits ahead, Yuda feels confident. With his high stats, no monster can stop him. He is sure he will win and finally go home. But the moment he steps into the final room, what appears is not a monster. Flames rise, and a dark, demonic figure steps out with a scary smile and glowing eyes. When the flames fade, Yuda sees a man with long hair. He is left completely speechless. The man, Asura, looks around and asks, "Who are you people?" Yuda is even more confused. The little fairy trembles in fear. Yuda stares and mutters, "Some random old guy." He looks around the room and asks, "Is this man really the final boss of the tower?" Asura frowns, wondering where he is. Then he realizes Maya truly sealed him inside this place. Yuda hears the man speak clearly and decides he must be an intelligent monster. He pulls himself together, draws his sword, and prepares to fight. This is the final boss, he cannot let his guard down. Yuda charges with all his strength, trying to end the battle quickly. But Asura blocks the attack easily with one hand. Yuda is shocked. The boy keeps attacking, swinging his sword again and again. Asura barely moves and deflects every strike with his arm. He does not even step from his spot. With one final effort, Yuda jumps high and shouts, "This is the end." He pours all his power into his holy sword of Asterion and unleashes heaven's judgment. Asura smirks and calls him a brat. To Yuda's amazement, the man catches the glowing blade with his bare hand. The ultimate skill stops completely. Yuda cannot believe it. This really is the final boss. His system guide starts analyzing for a weakness. It finishes and shows a high chance of success. But Asura only glares at the sword calmly. With one quiet word, Yuda's system screen flashes a critical error. The success chance drops to less than 1%. Yuda panics. He has never met an enemy this powerful in the entire tower. A dark, demonic aura surrounds Asura. Yuda wonders what kind of being this old man truly is. Asura smiles and says, "Don't be so scared, kid. I don't waste my time fighting people who aren't worth it." Yuda is speechless. Is he really not worth a fight? Asura adds seriously, "At your level, even one punch from me would be a waste." Then he looks at Yuda and asks, "What is this place?" At that moment, Yuda finally understands. His skills failed from the start because this stage is different. To deal any damage, he must prove his true strength, without relying on the system. Yuda takes a deep breath and says, "I'll prove my strength, no doubt about it." A system window appears and activates his chosen hero skill. For a short time, all his stats reach the maximum the system allows, 999, the screen shows every attribute at 999. Yuda looks at the numbers proudly, but Asura stares at the blue window and laughs coldly. To him, numbers like 999 for strength and speed are pathetic. He finds it disgusting that anyone would use a glowing screen to measure real power. Seeing this, Asura says he no longer cares about the purpose of this place. His hand glows with power as he decides to correct the boy's wrong thinking. Yuda feels the deadly killing intent and screams while raising his sword to fight. Asura charges forward and declares he will first destroy that disgusting blue screen. With one powerful punch, he strikes Yuda's status window directly. The blow sends Yuda flying through the air as he shouts in shock. Yuda screams in despair, unable to believe what is happening. The status window shatters into pieces, and the entire system takes heavy damage. Yuda wonders how this is even possible. A bright white light bursts from the tower. All his data is wiped out. And the system shuts down forever. Asura glares at him and asks if he finally understands that true strength cannot be measured by numbers. With a smirk, Asura says this boring game of numbers ends now. Yuda collapses to the ground, completely defeated and powerless. His level drops back to 1. Crying, he can only say sorry for everything. 3 years ago, Yuda was summoned to the tower with many companions. They climbed together, but only he survived. In that memory, Yuda asks his fairy companion, Nova, if they will ever return home. The more he thinks about it, the stranger everything feels. Nova agrees, it might be impossible to go back. But she also says their path must have a greater purpose. Those words cheer Yuda up and give him hope. Back in the present, Asura looks down at him and says, "Your little numbers game ends now." Yuda falls to the ground, completely defeated. His level drops back to 1. Tears in his eyes, he admits he was wrong. Asura walks closer. Yuda desperately tries to open his status window. His inventory, and his quest screen, but nothing works. He panics and shouts for the system to restart. He cannot believe what is happening. Asura calls him pathetic. "Are you still trapped in that game?" he asks with disgust. Those ugly blue windows will never appear again. Terrified, Yuda crawls backward and begs for his life. Asura stares at him coldly and repeats that he does not kill anyone who is not worth fighting. Then he asks again, "What is this place? How do I return to my own world?" Yuda realizes Asura is also a player. He explains that the only known way home is to clear the final floor of the tower. There is no other method. Asura does not understand the words and looks confused. Yuda thinks the man must come from a very ancient time. He sits down, trying to find simpler words. Finally, Yuda says, "To leave, you must clear the whole tower. You have to pass every floor, from the first to the last." With a sly smile, Yuda adds, "Since you're a player too, you should start by doing the quests." Asura misunderstands completely. He shouts that he will smash the tower to pieces. Yuda tries to stop him and explain that towers are not cleared that way, but it is too late. Asura releases a powerful wave of energy and begins destroying everything around him. Explosions start from the bottom and race upward. The entire tower begins to collapse. Yuda watches in shock and screams, "Why are you destroying the tower?" The system announces errors as huge chunks of the tower fall apart. Yuda falls among the rubble, terrified. He cannot understand how anyone can destroy a tower with bare hands. In the middle of the fall, Nova suddenly appears. She calls Yuda's name desperately. Yuda is surprised to see his old companion again. Nova reaches him, grabs him tightly, and holds on so they stay together. "I'm sorry I was late," she says. "I went to get your sword." A sword lay forgotten behind them. Right after, Nova grabbed Yuda's arm and said, "We have to get out of here now. Something huge is coming." Yuda looked around, confused. What could be worse than this? He thought. Nothing seemed more dangerous than what was already happening. Suddenly, bright lights surrounded them. A loud system alert rang out, illegal access detected. Then a massive black hole opened in the air and began swallowing everything. Another warning flashed, all tower data will be deleted. Yuda turned and stared in horror at a giant purple hole in the sky. Broken pieces of the tower were flying straight into it. "If we get pulled in too," he whispered, "we're gone forever." The system voice spoke again, "Trash bin almost full. Undelete data is leaking." Far away, Asura was still releasing his power, destroying everything around him without caring. Then he paused. He felt like he had stepped on something. He looked down and saw Yuda and Nova standing right in front of him. Both Yuda and Nova froze in shock. Asura turned around, puzzled. Even though the tower was completely destroyed, nothing special had happened. He had just stepped through the huge hole, and it vanished behind him. He shrugged and said, "I did exactly what you told me, kid. I cleared the whole place." Yuda shouted, "That's not clearing it. You went way too far." He warned Asura, "If you keep breaking everything, something really bad will happen." Just then, a pillar of purple energy shot up from the ground. Yuda jumped back in surprise. Asura stared at it calmly. From the light, a woman with long white hair stepped out. Asura's face darkened. "An unwelcome guest," he muttered, but when he saw her face clearly, he went pale and screamed, "Myowool." Thought it was the same woman who had betrayed him long ago. She looked at him with cold disgust and said, "You little brat. You destroyed my tower." Asura's rage exploded. He charged at her, yelling about her betrayal. Without showing any concern, the woman simply raises her hand to stop the attack. With a simple gesture, she unleashes a wave of power that sends him flying and stuck into the ground. Seeing the scene, Yuda screams desperately for the man Asura. Unable to believe the woman's power, Myowool approaches and asks Asura if he didn't hear her the first time. With a look of contempt, she repeats that she asked if he was the one who destroyed her tower. Yuda is in shock, realizing she defeated that monster with a single blow. He wonders if this could be the Goddess Eshua that Nova had mentioned earlier. Getting up, Asura digs his fingers into the earth and says he finally understands. He states that she is very different from the Myowool wall he knew, as she uses a strange power. From this, Asura concludes that she was the one responsible for building this darn tower. With a hateful smile, he accuses her of being the creator of this disgusting numbers game. Asura screams that he did everything they asked and cleared the place completely. He continues to complain about that darn tower and that disgusting status game, too. Hearing the Asura words, Nova and Yuda shocked and staring at him withstanding. The woman Eshua also staring and listened to Asura and Asura Countess. Because of this, he lunges forward and demands that she send him back to his original kingdom. The woman stares at him with a mocking smile, unfazed by his threat. Right after, Eshua starts laughing, finding the whole situation hilarious. She then asks who told him that ridiculous story about going back home. Seeing this, Yuda and Nova felt surprised and nervously confused. Asura gets up and she tells him to break whatever he wants without a care. Mai challenges him, saying that if he destroys everything she's created, she'll send him back. Suddenly, system announces that data from the recycle bin is being restored in front of Yuda. With that, several players begin to appear, and the boy is left confused about what's going on. He's in shock when he sees that these players are his former deceased companions. With a wicked smile, the woman says that the towers he needs to destroy now are different ones. The scene shows a world filled with countless towers, revealing that many more still need to be conquered. Yuda burns with anger. When he sees how cruel it all is, a golden aura bursts from him. Right away, he charges forward with all his strength, sword raised. But the woman blocks his attack easily with her purple energy. She catches the blade in her hand and calls him trash for daring to attack her with such weak power. The dead companions came back to life one by one. Eshua looked at Asura and said, "It won't be easy from now on. There are still many towers left in this world that you need to destroy." Then she laughed loudly. Yuda stared in confusion at his friends who had died, now standing alive again. One of the revived companions grabbed his arm and said, "Yuda, let's hurry and climb the tower. Everyone, to the tower." On the other side, Eshua gave Asura a mocking smile. "No matter how much power you have, you cannot break the balance of this world so easily." Suddenly, Yuda's anger exploded. He rushed at Eshua with great speed, jumping high and pouring golden aura into his sword. He swung down with all his strength. But Eshua's automatic defense blocked it without effort. She looked at him and said, "What? This worthless trash." Filled with rage and despair, Yuda screamed, "How are my dead companions here again?" He remembered how they had all risked their lives climbing that meaningless tower. "Is this why you brought us here?" he shouted. He attacked again, but with a simple wave of her hand, Eshua threw him backward. Looking down at him with cold superiority, she said, "You are all just pawns in my world. This world I created is still unstable. It cannot exist without your power. That is why I gave you fake quests and made you climb the tower, to steal your strength." She laughed and added, "I have no more use for someone who has no power left." With those words, she pushed Yuta far away. Yuta shouted, "How dare you do this for such a reason?" Eshua replied, "I no longer have any business with you. Now disappear." She gathered powerful energy in her hand, laughing as she prepared to strike him down. Tears filled Yuta's eyes. He clenched his teeth and thought, "Damn it, it's all my fault. I never should have climbed that tower in the first place. If only I had been a little stronger, a little wiser. I could have defeated that woman." Eshua told him to vanish forever and attacked. Yuta lay on the ground, crying and blaming himself for everything that had happened to his friends, but suddenly, a hand appeared from nowhere and tore apart the powerful strike Asura had launched. Eshua's eyes widened in shock. It was Asura. He slammed her into the ground with terrifying force, creating a huge crater. Eshua could not understand how he had moved so fast. Asura looked at Yuta and said, "Kid, you've earned my respect again." With a smirk, he turned to Eshua. "How dare you touch my prey before I do?" Yuta could not speak. Asura continued, "Your courage is good, but it's still too early for you. I will be the one to finish this woman, no one else." He charged forward and landed a powerful punch. The blow exploded with energy and destroyed everything around them. Asura smiled. "Only I will end her." Eshua was surprised by his strength, even without a system to help him. But she said, "I won't let such wild power run free." She attacked with purple energy. Asura grew angry at her tricks and tried to break free, but she trapped him inside a magic circle. "Conquer all the towers," she said. "I will wait for you at the highest place in this world." Then she vanished. Asura fell to his knees, surrounded by her purple energy. A memory came to him, an old voice named Myowool, asking him long ago to conquer all the nations of the world. He thought to himself, no matter how much I think about it, that woman and Myowool. They are really very similar. Asura wonders why she sent him to a place like this. He calls out her name, Myowool. Suddenly, one of the revived knights charges straight at Yuta. The boy blocks the blow, but the knight's strength shocks him and overwhelms him. Yuta shouts the names of his old friends, calling out to Young Myung-hoon and asking if they no longer recognize him. His little fairy, Nova, warns him that it's pointless, they are only echoes of old memories. Even knowing this, Yuta hesitates to fight the people who were once his companions. Then Asura appears. With one punch, he defeats a knight attacking Yuta and says, "What are you doing, brat?" Yuta stares in surprise as Asura easily kicks another enemy away. With a serious look, Asura orders the boy to lead him to the towers right now. Yuta is shocked and argues that these knights are his friends. Asura scoffs and asks if those things truly look like companions. He says they are simply vengeful spirits of the dead, and nothing can change that. He adds that if Yuta wants to waste time with ghosts, he will go to the towers alone. At that moment, the knights swarm toward Asura. He turns his back on them, dodges swiftly, and strikes back without effort. He grows angry at these ghosts for daring to block the king's path. He declares he is busy and will destroy them all at once. Asura unleashes a powerful attack surrounded by a reddish aura. But right after, he bends over in pain. He looks at his hand and realizes he cannot feel his energy. He wonders if his dantian has been sealed. With a furious smile, he understands that the woman Eshua is testing him. He declares that no matter what she does, nothing will stop him here. When more ghosts rush to attack, Asura punches straight through several of them and proclaims himself the strongest of all time. Facing the huge horde, he decides it is time for a warm-up. He leaps high, strikes with his fists, and charges in, sending ghosts flying everywhere. Yuta watches in shock and admits that this old man is a monster for fighting alone. But he notices a serious problem: no matter how many ghosts Asura defeats, they keep respawning without end. If the fight drags on, even Asura could tire out. Yuta decides he must help. He grabs his holy sword. Just then, Nova appears and tells him to calm down, the situation is too dangerous. She warns that using the holy sword without his full stats could destroy his body. Yuta says he knows the risk, but a ghost grabs him and calls him into the darkness. The spirit of his old companion begs him to climb the tower together again. Yuta uses the holy sword's power to break free. With a determined expression. He says he must act to avenge his dead friends. No matter what happens, he will find the woman Eshua who caused all this. Yuta shouts to get Asura's attention while the man keeps fighting the ghosts. With confidence, Yuta asks if the warrior can take his next attack without dodging and tells him to keep drawing the enemy's attention. Asura does not understand aggro and gets annoyed. He tells the cheeky kid to shut up and stop giving orders on the battlefield, then attacks more ghosts. Yuta's plan works, all the enemies focus on Asura. Yuta seizes the chance, leaps over the horde with his sword raised. For a moment, he looks at the faces of his former companions and feels pain in his chest. Tears fill his eyes as he apologizes to his friends one last time. He swears he will avenge them, no matter the cost. Then he releases the full power of the holy sword. A massive golden magic circle forms in the sky. Bright energy crashes down, creating a huge explosion that wipes out all the ghosts. Asura smirks and calls the boy a bold, reckless brat. Yuta drops to his knees, barely able to move. Asura admits that the kid is actually quite useful after all. Yuta breathes heavily and looks at Asura with a determined gaze. He tells him to remember one very important thing between them: the one who will finish that woman will not be Asura. Completely exhausted, Yuta collapses. Asura easily picks him up in his arms. With a wide grin, he laughs and calls the boy a sassy, insignificant brat. He wonders how the kid dares to give him orders twice, but admits the boy made him laugh. As a reward, he promises that if Yuta grows stronger, he will get his chance for revenge. With a confident smile, Asura says he will eagerly wait for that day. The scene shifts to a ruined place covered in strange runes. A large hole gapes in the ground ahead. A mysterious warrior wearing a skull helmet and carrying an axe stands on a sharp rock at the edge of a cliff, surveying the landscape. Suddenly, a strange purple energy begins to glow from the eye sockets of the skull helmet. The scene opens in a remote valley surrounded by tall cliffs, with a powerful waterfall crashing down in the background. Asura sits under the waterfall, letting the heavy water pound his body to regain his strength. He stares ahead with fierce focus, enduring the training. The force of the water is so strong that it shatters the rocks around him. Still, he feels nothing, no inner power at all. Anger rises in him as he remembers how that woman, Eshua, dared to seal his dantian. He calls her bold for doing that. Realizing he has no other choice now, Asura turns to Yuta, who is still unconscious on the ground. He kicks him hard. "How long are you going to sleep?" he growls. Then he grabs Yuta and throws him down again. Yuta slides across the dirt. Annoyed, Yuta stands up, gripping his sword. "You muscle-brained gorilla. You're finally showing your true colors." Asura smirks. "You still don't understand the situation, brat. Do you want to die?" Yuta glares back. "Finish me then. But first, shouldn't we find that woman?" Asura's anger flares. "You idiot. She's hiding inside the towers. This whole world was created by her." Yuta and the little fairy Nova shrink back, scared of Asura's rage. With a wild smile, Asura continues, "If I destroy every tower, I'll force her out." Yuta sees the logic but wonders why he has to follow this madman. Nova whispers to Yuta, "No matter how you look at it, he's dangerous. He broke his own status window, who knows what else he'll do." Asura overhears and turns sharply. "What are you two whispering about?" Nova jumps in fear and hides behind Yuta. "I don't want to travel with you," Asura says coldly. Then he pauses. "But your sword skills might be useful, brat. Besides, you want the same woman I do. With your weak body, you'll never beat her alone. From now on, I'm training all of you, together." The scene shifts to a massive, strange-looking tower standing before them. A voice says, "We finally made it." Asura stares at the tower and thinks, this is one of the towers she built. He turns to Nova. "In just a few days, you've grown a lot, girl. With a body like that, you'll be useful." Nova bows seriously. "Thank you, master. It's all because of your training." Asura nods, then asks, "Where's that weak brat?" In the background, Yuta can barely walk, leaning on a stick for support. His body has no energy left. Nova proudly flexes her new muscles while Yuta mutters, "Just give me a second." He looks at them and says, "You're both lunatics." He stares at Nova in shock. She looks completely different, stronger, more muscular. Exhausted, Yuta collapses. "I can't take another step." Asura glares at him. "Pathetic brat. You can't even keep up." Then he looks at the tower. It's ugly and strange. Nova asks, "Master, are we going inside?" "I don't see an entrance." Asura smirks. "We don't need an entrance. We're going to smash this thing to pieces." Nova's eyes light up. As expected of Master. One punch and it's gone. Yuta panics and tries to stop them. "Wait. Think about this." But it's too late. Asura charges forward. Purple energy gathers in his fist. Just as he swings, a system warning flashes, "Critical error. Force transfer to tower interior." All three are suddenly pulled inside. Yuta screams, "You crazy old man. You didn't think at all." The scene changes to a ruined city, crumbled buildings. Dark sky. A blast of purple energy explodes against one of the structures as the three crash to the ground. Asura stands and looks around. What are these creepy buildings? Yuta gets up, confused. Where are we? He notices Nova has returned to her small, normal size. She touches her arms sadly. My muscles. They're gone. Looking at the destroyed city, Yuta wonders if this is even a real city. Nova, scared, asks if they're back in their original world. Yuta shakes his head, he's sure this isn't his world. Then Nova points to bodies lying on the ground. Are those players? Yuta wonders why there are so many dead people. Suddenly, a voice echoes, heed my call. Purple energy rises from the bodies. One corpse screams in pain, Asura watches quietly, understanding what is happening. The souls of the dead gather in the sky. A figure in a suit floats down from above. He looks at the group with a superior smile. New players summoned to the tower. Interesting. Don't bother resisting. Only I will reach the top. He raises his hand, drawing in the purple soul energy. A giant skeleton forms before them. The system calls it the King of Spectres. Yuta stares in shock. That's way more than just a skeleton. The monster's purple eyes glow as it attacks. Yuta shouts, Asura, get out of the way. It's too strong. Asura laughs. Dangerous? To me? He charges and punches the skeleton with one devastating blow. The creature shatters into nothing. Asura turns with a smirk. Useless trash. He glares up at the man in the sky. You think that weak thing makes you the strongest? You dare claim the top with such little power? The man looks down calmly. Hiding behind a monster. Is that what you think? Right after that, the man uses his power again. Several more creatures appear beside him. He says he has changed his mind. With a challenging look, he tells Asura, I'm going to test you. Let's see how long you can survive. The two monsters charged at Asura together. Asura smirked. This is your test. He said. He raised one fist. Creatures like you dare to challenge me. With a single swing of his arm, he smashed one beast backward. It crashed hard into the wall. He turned to the man who had summoned them. You think this tests me? The second beast, a skeletal monster with purple energy glowing in its eyes and swirling across its face, snarled. Chains burst from its body and shot toward Asura. Asura stood still. The chains wrapped around his arms. For a moment, he looked surprised. Then a lion-like spirit beast leaped from the shadows behind him, claws ready. Asura's eyes flashed. He gathered his strength and struck. His huge hand slashed through the lion beast again and again. He cut off its head, tore out its eyes, and sent blood spraying from its mouth. One massive arm flew through the air. In seconds, the beast lay in pieces on the ground. Asura brushed his hand. That tickled, he said. A deep voice echoed through the darkness, summon the abyssal horde. Hundreds of skeleton soldiers and monsters appeared behind Asura and rushed him at once. Asura took one step forward. Power surged from his foot. A wave of energy exploded outward. Every monster shattered and flew through the air like broken toys. Suddenly, a giant titan beast charged in with terrifying speed and swung a huge fist. Asura did not move. He raised his own fist and blocked the blow. The titan beast screamed in pain, shocked that its attack had failed. A deep voice echoed again, summon shackle wraiths. Countless ghostly figures wrapped in rattling chains rose from the ground around Asura. He was still holding the massive fist of the titan beast with one hand. Asura glanced at the wraiths and frowned. What are these? The man suddenly appeared right behind Asura. His eyes were cold and sharp. I don't understand, the man said quietly. I can't sense any stats or skills from you. So how do you have this much power? Asura turned and looked at him with a serious face, but said nothing. The man gripped two swords. Purple energy flowed around the blades and glowed in his eyes. No need for answers, he said. I'll take your soul and find out myself. He raised his swords. A huge purple light exploded in the sky above them. With a powerful swing, he unleashed Brand of Extinction. A massive wave of destructive energy rushed toward Yuta and Nova. Yuta's eyes widened in shock. That power is insane. He's fighting that monster on equal ground, one-on-one. Just who is this guy? Nova's face turned pale. Yuta, run. He shouted. That's no longer a normal player. I don't know why, but I feel it clearly, that man is giving off the same kind of power as Goddess Eshua. The battle between Asura and the man tore the tower apart. Dust and smoke filled the air. When the dust settled, the man stood calmly. Is this finally the last soul? He said. He was a troublesome one. He looked at the beast beside him. With this, my contract with Goddess Eshua is complete. He raised his hand. Purple energy gathered around it. Nameless player, he commanded, soul absorption. With a cold stare, he added, I will put your soul to good use. But in an instant, Asura appeared out of nowhere behind the man. With blinding speed, he slashed through the beasts at the man's side and cut off their heads. The man froze in shock. Asura stepped forward. You mentioned a goddess, he said. Are you talking about the woman who sealed my dantian, that cursed woman? He stared straight at the man. I have been looking for her. This works out nicely. Unless you want to die here. Tell me where she is. The man smiled. Sure. This fight wasn't going to end so easily anyway. But don't get the wrong idea. Purple energy surged around him. Dozens of glowing swords appeared in the air all around them. The one who dies in this tower won't be me, he said. It will be you. He sent every sword flying toward Asura. Asura blocked them all with his bare hands. Still smirking, he caught one sword, yanked it toward himself, and threw it straight back at the man. The force was so strong that even the air around it shook. The man's eyes widened in surprise as the sword flew past him and smashed into the wall, blowing a huge hole through it. The man smiled again. You really are an absurd monster. Purple energy swirled around the man's hands and swords. I won't deny it anymore, he said. You are strong. Now I will fight you with everything I have. He commanded, armor of Hades. Dark armor formed over his shoulders and arms. He leaped forward with incredible speed and swung both swords at Asura. Cold eyes gleaming, he laughed. Try to take this. A massive wave of purple energy burst from his blades. Asura ducked low. The energy missed him and slammed into a nearby building, tearing it to pieces. Asura smirked. Is that all, brat? Not yet. The man shouted. He twisted in the air, jumped even higher, and prepared a stronger attack. Asura clenched his fist. You're right about one thing. The gap between our power is huge. He blocked both swords with his bare hand. A massive explosion erupted, destroying everything around them. The man felt a flicker of fear, then forced a laugh. Yes. You really are strong. For now. He turned his cold gaze toward Yuta, who had been watching in shock. You said you were looking for Goddess Eshua. The man asked Asura. She is the one who gave me this tower. But I haven't gained full control yet. So I made a contract with her. I would offer the souls of 10,000 players, and in return I would become the true master of the tower. He smiled darkly. And now, with this last soul, I've finally collected them all. In a flash, he appeared beside Nove and reached out to absorb his soul. Yuta's eyes widened. No. Nove. He drew his sword and charged. You bastard. Get away from him. The man didn't even look at him. Small fry should stay out of this. A huge beast appeared behind Yuta and slammed a hand into his chest. Blood sprayed from Yuta's mouth. He collapsed, eyes wide in shock. The man laughed as more titanic beasts gathered around him. Yuta lay on the ground, blood pooling beneath him. A system message appeared. Quest, succession ritual, acquired the final 10,000th soul. Full authority of the tower will soon be unlocked. Time remaining, 1 minute and 4 seconds. The man turned back to Asura. Looking at you, he said, I can tell you're a spirit master who controls vengeful ghosts. Asura's eyes narrowed. In my kingdom, there were always a few who practiced these vile arts, he said coldly. Wicked, twisted scum. I never thought I would see such disgusting techniques again here. Aura suddenly flared around his hands. I don't usually lower myself to use such filthy methods, he continued. But you've gone too far. Now watch carefully. A massive wave of pure aura surged from his palms, the true power of spirit arts. In an instant, the souls trapped inside the titanic beasts began to flow toward him. The man froze, his face pale with shock. He's stealing the souls I collected. Impossible. The system shouldn't allow this. Yuta's soul returned to his body first. Then the rest of the gathered souls streamed into both Yuta and Nove, bringing them back to life. Asura looked down at the two revived players and smirked. Now go wild, brats, he said. Do whatever you want. It's your turn. To crush that pathetic worm. Yuta suddenly regained consciousness. He stared at his own body lying motionless and felt like a ghost. Panic surged through him. What's going on? He cried. Don't tell me. I'm dead. He turned toward Asura and shouted, You did this, didn't you? Give me back my body right now. Asura's face darkened with anger. You idiot, he snapped. Who do you think you're blaming? If I hadn't stepped in, your body would have died long ago. That bastard used spirit arts to rip your soul out and turn you into his puppet. I stole his technique to stop him. By separating your soul from your body, I gave your flesh time to heal. So shut up and do what I say. Asura's anger faded into a cold smile. I also took several of the souls he was controlling. He's lost most of his power now. Yuta was still confused. He floated closer, staring at his empty body, trying to understand. Asura continued, You think spirit arts are nothing special? They don't seem to change much at first. Brats, show him the true power of spirit arts. One of the men stepped forward. Purple energy flared around his feet as he glared at Asura. You stole a few souls and now you think I'm worthless? He said. The man grew furious. Purple energy surged across his body, and his eyes glowed the same color. He stepped closer to Asura. Enough of your bullshit, he snarled. I don't know how you stole those souls, but the ones you took are nothing, just a drop in the bucket. As he spoke, he raised his hand. Purple aura flared brighter, and more demon beasts rose from the ground. Skeletons clattered up beside them. Then even more spirit puppet beasts appeared all around him. You call that the true power of spirit arts? He mocked. With just 2 people. Ridiculous. Asura laughed loudly. Ha! Just 2 people. You still measure strength by numbers alone. At that moment, Yuda leaped forward. Yellow aura flowed along his sword as he swung at one of the puppet beasts. The blade sliced deep into its shoulder. The creature let out a pained howl and flew backward, crashing far away. Dust exploded into the air from the impact. The man stared in shock. His eyes widened. What? Is this power? He thought. Where did it come from? Just moments ago, this kid was half dead. More puppets prepared to attack. One huge beast with a massive mouth and purple energy dripping from its face charged straight at Nova, who was still unconscious and standing motionless. Yuda saw it and shouted, Nova. She hasn't woken up yet. The beast reached its peak and lunged to strike. Suddenly, dark power exploded from Nova's body. Her aura turned overwhelming and black. She struck the beast's face with terrifying force. The massive creature vanished in an instant, completely destroyed. Nova blinked and regained consciousness. She looked at her hands in surprise. I feel really strong too. Yuda rushed over and called, Nova, are you okay? She nodded, still amazed. Yuda turned back toward the enemy with a cold expression. I think we both got a lot stronger because of these spirit arts. Or whatever this is. But if we keep fighting like this, it'll never end. He looked at the growing army, spirit puppets, giant beasts, screaming souls, zombies, and skeletons, all covered in flowing purple energy. Asura glanced at the man and noticed he was still using his power to summon even more puppets without stopping. Asura looked at Yuda and Nova and said, listen carefully. To stop him, we have to destroy that disgusting system window first. My dantian is sealed, so I can't use blast. Breaking it won't be easy. Yuda asked, but there is a way, right? Even with your dantian sealed, you can still use spirit arts. Asura clenched his paws into fists and nodded. Exactly. I can't use internal chi, but external chi is no problem for me. He turned to Nova. If there's enough chi, I can create power equal to blast. Your chi is special, kid. Lend it to me. Nova's eyes widened in shock. Deep inside the dark tower, dust floated everywhere. A system notification suddenly appeared in front of the man, warning. The number of souls required for the quest is insufficient. Acquire more souls to complete the quest. The man stared at his blue system window and muttered, those worms wasted the souls I needed. Anger filled his voice. But I can collect more later. First, I must get rid of those pests. He raised his hand. Purple energy swirled around it. My souls. He shouted. Answer my call. Hundreds of soul puppet beasts appeared around him. He pointed forward and commanded, sweep away every enemy in sight. Asura watched the army of puppets and said to Yuda, we only get one chance. Trust me and give everything you have. Open a path so I can reach him. The puppet beasts charged forward while the man controlled them from behind. Yuda gripped his sword. Don't worry, he told Asura. I'm not doing this because I trust you. I'm doing it for Nova and for myself. I will open that path. Yellow aura covered Yuda's sword. He shouted, Holy Sword of Assyrian. Bright holy light burst from the blade. With one powerful swing, he cut a wide path through the puppets. The man laughed as he watched from his system window. Fools! You waste all your strength just to clear my army. It's useless. You can't handle all the souls I've collected. Suddenly, Asura appeared out of the darkness right in front of him. Just as I thought, Asura said with a wild grin. Every time my spirits died, you opened that blue window to check it. Coward. The man's eyes went wide with shock. Asura gathered spirit energy into his fist. Nova poured all his chi into Asura to make the attack stronger. Asura roared, your annoying games end now. And punched the blue system window with full force. Fist King Asura style, destruction. A huge explosion blasted everything around them. The system window cracked and shattered into pieces. The name Lee Chanwoo, level 99 and his endless HP and MP vanished with it. The man screamed, this can't be. His mouth hung open in horror. In his mind, he thought, everything I built. Destroyed so easily. I can't accept this. His eyes turned red with rage and fear. My stats. My power. My world. All gone. A final system message appeared, error. Error. Soul data damaged. All souls will be permanently deleted. Quest succession ritual failed. Yuda collapsed to the ground, exhausted from clearing the path. Slowly, he stood up again. He placed a hand on his chest and felt his heartbeat. "Ha!" he whispered in surprise. "I'm back in my real body." He looked at Asura with amazement. "My body really healed, just like he promised." "Who is Asura, really? How strong is he?" Meanwhile, the man fell to his knees. Tears of anger streamed down his face. "This can't be true. It can't end like this. Because of you. Because of all of you," he shouted. "The only way to save my world from destruction is gone forever." His eyes burned red and purple with pure rage.
After losing Lee Chanwoo talking about his past when Lee Chanwoo was walking on the street with headphones on, heading to school. Suddenly, he heard people shouting and running behind him in fear. He turned around, took off his headphones, and looked up. A huge number of teleportation gates appeared in the sky. He stood frozen in the same spot, shocked. Then the city was attacked. Fire spread everywhere. Buildings collapsed. People died horribly. One man had an iron rod pierced through his chest. Many others lost their lives while trying to escape. Lee Chanwoo was the only one who survived. He stood there in complete shock and fear. Sweat covered his face, and his eyes were wide open with terror. Suddenly, a woman appeared in front of him. A blue screen popped up, introducing the system. Then Yuda showed up, trapped or confused, and asked Lee Chanwoo, "What are you talking about all of a sudden? The world was destroyed? Aren't you a player from another world like us? So why would your world suddenly?" Before Yuda could finish, Lee Chanwoo put his hand on his head. Tears filled his eyes as he said, "When I became a player, my world was already doomed. A monster wave was going to destroy it. I wanted to save my world no matter what." His eyes turned cold, and tears fell as he continued, "I thought I could save it with my own power. With only one goal, to save everyone, I climbed to the top of the tower. There, I learned the truth, the person who conquers the tower gets the power to create a new world." Yuda was surprised and asked, "A new world, the power to create?" Lee Chanwoo looked at his hand and said, "Yes. I used that power to try and remake my world inside this tower, exactly as it was before the destruction." Then he shouted with anger and pain, "I wanted to save and protect them with my own power. Finally had the strength to protect everyone." He clenched his fist tightly and yelled with tearful eyes, "But everything is ruined because of you. If you hadn't interfered, the quest would have." Before he could finish, Asura angrily interrupted, "Stop with the cowardly excuses. You coward." Asura kept talking coldly. "Someone like you wants to save the world? Save everyone? Then why did you run away when your world was being destroyed?" Lee Chanwoo's eyes opened wide in shock. Asura continued, "You never really planned to save them, did you? You said you wanted the power to recreate the world, not to save it. Is that power just some pathetic game of numbers to you? Even if you rebuild the world inside this tower, what real meaning would it have?" Asura stepped forward and said calmly, "Since grief has made you forget reality, let me remind you of one thing. You just wanted to escape your weak, painful reality. And play the hero." Lee Chanwoo shouted in anger, "Shut up." He raised his fist and charged to attack. But with just one hit, Asura knocked him down hard. Lee Chanwoo flew back and crashed into the wall. Blood came out of his mouth as he coughed. In his mind, he thought, "I really did it to save everyone." Then he remembered a past conversation with Ensure. Ensure had said, "Player, you have finally cleared all the stages of the tower. Now you have two choices. If you want, you can return to your world right before it was destroyed. You can face the monster wave and try to save your world." Lee Chanwoo stayed silent. Ensure smiled coldly and continued, "Or you can accept a special quest. Inherit the full power of the tower and recreate the world you lived in, right here inside the tower. Make your choice." She asked coldly, "Will you go back to your original world, face the monster wave, and become a hero in an endless war? Or will you use this power to create the world you want? And become the savior of that world?" Lee Chanwoo thought for a moment. Then he answered, "I will inherit all the power of this tower. And save my own world." Back in the present, inside the tower, a system warning appeared, "The tower's system is collapsing. All data inside the tower will be deleted." Yuda looked at Nova and asked in panic, "What is this now? Don't tell me. The tower is collapsing?" Rocks started falling around them. Yuda turned to Asura in fear and shouted, "Mister, what do we do? At this rate, we'll all die with the tower." Suddenly, Lee Chanwoo spoke again, weak but clear. "Eshua once told me something." Hearing the name Eshua, both Asura and Yuda paid close attention. Lee Chanwoo continued slowly, "All the towers in this world are connected by one single path." As he spoke, the last of his remaining power faded away. Yuda looked shocked. Lee Chanwu went on, I don't know exactly what that one path means. But maybe. If you reach the end of that path, you will be able to meet the Goddess Eshua. With a tired, sad face, he said, if you want to find Eshua, seek out that path. Yuta asked, confused and emotional, what do you mean by that? And why are you telling us this? Lee Chanwu sat on the ground and spoke in a low, tired voice. Because the memories I tried so hard to ignore have come back. Now I finally understand. He looked straight at Asura and said, that muscle-bound man was right. I was just a coward running away from a weak, painful reality. I got drunk on the idea of playing hero. Even if I admit it now, nothing will change. He gave a painful smile and continued, after all, I gave up the chance to return to my original world. His voice became quieter. So in this empty world with nothing left, I have no reason to keep living. The exit is behind you. If you wait any longer, even that exit might disappear. Before the tower collapses completely. Hurry and get out of here. Asura looked down at Lee Chanwu and said calmly, you intend to stay here and die. Understood. You were a coward, but you are not pathetic. Do what you want. Asura turned and walked toward the glowing exit that had appeared. As he walked, he said, if I meet that woman later and crush her, I'll do it for your share too. Yuta quickly called after him, surprised, mister. Are you really just going to leave him here? Yuta added, he can come with us. He can look for Eshua too. Asura turned his cold eyes toward Yuta and said sharply, silence, you ignorant brat. He was defeated in a real life or death battle. Then Asura looked back at the huge teleportation gate and spoke again. For the winner to spare his life and let the loser choose his own place to die. What greater mercy could there be? Yuta looked confused and turned toward Lee Chanwu, but, before he could finish, Nova interrupted urgently. There's no time, Yuta. Soon the entire tower will completely collapse. Yuta clenched his teeth. I know, Nova, but I can't. He shouted with determination, I can't just give up on a person's life. Then Yuta bent down, lifted Lee Chanwu onto his back, and carried him. Nova looked shocked. Lee Chanwu spoke weakly while being carried on Yuta's back. What are you doing right now? I have no power left. No purpose left. Even if I leave the tower like this, I have no reason to live anymore. Yuta looked at him and shouted, even if you say you have no reason to live, if you keep going, a reason will appear someday. So don't just throw your life away. Lee Chanwu became silent. Sadness filled his face, but he didn't say anything more. After a moment, he asked quietly, you. What is your name? Nova looked at both of them, confused. Yuta said, annoyed, oh, seriously? In this situation, you have to ask that right now? Then he answered, it's Kim Yuta, you jerk. Happy now? Lee Chanwu replied coldly. Kim Yuta. That's a peculiar name. Yuta shot back, what? Are you done talking? Then what's your name? Lee Chanwu answered, I am called Lee Chanwu. Yuta laughed a little. Not exactly a grand name either. Then Lee Chanwu said seriously, Kim Yuta. I have one final request for you. Suddenly, a yellow wave of light passed over his shoulder. It gathered into a glowing power that came from the tower. Yuta stared in surprise. Lee Chanwu continued, please use this power for the right cause. Yuta was shocked and asked, what is this all of a sudden? Lee Chanwu said firmly, get off me. Who asked for something like this? Even if I leave the tower, I will disappear soon anyway. Without the power of the system, it's impossible to keep this body alive. His body slowly started to fade and vanish into light particles. As he disappeared, he spoke one last time, Yuta. You must return to your original world. Yuta looked at him with deep sadness. Tears filled his eyes. He held the glowing power tightly in his hand and shouted, Lee Chanwu. At that moment, the system warning appeared, the tower is completely collapsing. Time remaining, 1 second. All data in the tower will be deleted. The entire tower began to break apart and slowly got absorbed into a huge purple energy. The system announced coldly, number 312 tower has been completely destroyed. Somewhere far away, Eshua sat watching everything. A small smirk appeared on her face, now that's just one tower. You better try harder, unstat player. After defeating the tower keeper, the tower slowly began to disappear. The system sent an alert, all data of the tower has been deleted. From far away, Yuta and Asura watched the tower vanish. Yuta could not believe it. He said, really? Everything is gone. Then he looked at the new power flowing in his hands. With sadness, he whispered, from the moment the stat window shattered. Was it already too late to save him? He remembered Lee Chanwu's final moment and thought, if the stat window breaks, the player's real body dies too. That means I should have died already. So why am I still fine, unlike Lee Chanwu? He stared at the disappearing tower and wondered, do I still have some of the system's power inside me? Suddenly, Asura stepped closer and asked, why have you been making such a serious face, kid? Asura looked at him with a serious expression and said, is it because that spirit master died? He gave a small laugh. You're more sentimental than you look. Yuta kept holding the new power in his hand. He looked at Asura sadly and replied, yeah, so what? Are you going to nag me again? He stared at the power again and said, Lee Chan-woo. That guy. I just feel uneasy about it. He was definitely a bad person, but it feels strangely bittersweet. And in the end, he gave me this. He lifted his hand with the power. He told me to use it for the right cause. And to make sure I return to my original world. Yuta looked at Asura and said, I don't know what kind of power this is, but right now. It feels right to give it to you first, mister. Asura reached out and took the power into his hand. He looked surprised and said, I can feel that damn woman's chi inside this. Maybe. With this power, I can finally unseal my dantian. After hearing that, Yuta asked in surprise, really? Then will you regain all your strength? Asura looked at the object in his hand and said calmly, don't get ahead of yourself. With this amount, I will recover only a tiny fraction. Although the feeling from this object is the same as hers, it is much weaker than the powerful chi that sealed my dantian. Yuta looked curious and asked, I've been wondering for a while. What exactly is this dantian? You're already so strong even without it. Asura held the object and stared at it. The power I use now comes from external arts. It is pure physical strength, nothing more. Both Yuta and Nova looked shocked. Yuta asked nervously, so? Since you met Eshua, you've been fighting with just your raw physical strength the whole time. Nova added quietly, he's a monster. Asura spoke in a cold voice, if I recover my dantian, I can use internal energy. He continued explaining, internal energy uses the power of chi that flows through my body. It allows me to show strength far beyond external arts. Yuta's eyes opened wide. Internal energy? Is it like a magic skill? Then he thought to himself, come to think of it, that man was strong even without a stat window. If he had stats, how high would they have been? He was strong enough to destroy both the stat window and the tower. Yuta looked down sadly. Nova noticed and asked. Yuta, what are you thinking about? Yuta blinked. Huh? Oh. I was just wondering what Mr. Strength would look like in stats. Suddenly, Asura appeared behind him and lightly tapped his fist on Yuta's head. Are you still judging strength by those blue windows and numbers? Yuta rubbed his head in pain and said nervously, he has sharp ears too. Nova whispered, he's definitely a monster. Yuta asked Asura, then what is real strength to you? Asura gave a small smirk. Foolish. He raised his hand and said, strength comes from blood and sweat. It comes from training and effort. He clenched his fist tightly. Listen carefully. To throw a strong punch, I swung my fist 1,000 times a day. But if someone else swung it 1,001 times, does that make me weaker? He stood firm, feet planted, and the air around him seemed to press down. No. It's not just about the number. It's about how much you yearn for power with every single punch you throw. Asura pulled his fist back slowly. He held the position for a few moments, building pressure in the air behind him. He took a deep breath and said, in other words, true strength is what you gain when you put your whole heart into achieving what you desire. His eyes turned blue, and a powerful aura flowed around his fist. The air pressure grew stronger. Then, with full force, he threw his punch forward. A huge noise echoed. A bright light flashed across the area. The force of the punch blew everything in its path away, nothing was left standing. Even the dust swirled wildly around them. Yuta and Nova stared with wide eyes, completely stunned by the power. Asura looked at them and asked calmly, do you understand now? He glanced back at the object in his hand. Power still flowed from it into his palm. His eyes turned red, and his face showed anger. Anyway, the real problem is how to use this power properly. He gripped it tighter and thought bitterly. Damn it. It's full of things I don't understand. Myo-wool. What on earth were you thinking? High on the mountain, thick fog covered everything. Yuta and Asura were still talking about the power of the object. Asura suddenly tossed the object to Yuta and asked, is this the first time you've seen it too? Yuta caught it and replied, yes, that's right. Because of someone, my stats got destroyed before I could finish the tower. I thought everything would end once I reached the top. Asura listened and said, okay, I understand. Then he turned, looked at Yuta, and gave a small smirk. So. Would that guy know about this power? Yuta suddenly felt something and looked around. He noticed it too. Asura smiled wider and spoke in a cold voice. Reveal yourself. At that moment, a hidden figure stepped out from the fog. Yuta and Asura both stared at him, confused. Asura frowned after looking closely. What is this again? A monster that survived the tower? But I don't see any red aura. The man stood silently. A strong purple aura flowed around his one eye. He wore a skeleton mask shaped like an animal skull and held a huge, powerful axe in his hand. Asura narrowed his eyes and asked sharply, "Who are you?" The man wearing the big animal skull mask on his face said nothing. He simply raised his huge axe and pointed it at Asura, clearly challenging him to fight. Asura looked happy at the challenge. He laughed with a cold, chilling aura flowing around him. "Fine. No need for words. Come." The skull-masked fighter pushed one foot hard into the ground to build power. Purple aura surged around him. Then he jumped forward and swung his purple energy-covered axe straight at Asura. Asura bent down quickly and dodged the attack. He smiled, clenched his fist, and threw a powerful punch. The single hit sent the skull guy flying through the air. The skull guy managed to steady himself in midair. Purple aura flared brighter around his eyes. He spun his axe and came crashing down again with a fierce strike. Asura stayed in the same spot, not moving at all. The skull guy used a powerful move, an early splitter. Heavy purple energy exploded outward, destroying everything around them. Rocks flew everywhere, and the whole area shook. When the dust finally cleared, blood spots were scattered on the ground. But Asura stood unharmed. He had caught the axe blade directly with one hand and stopped the attack completely. Asura smiled and smirked. "You have quite the stance." The skull guy stayed silent. Asura gripped the axe tighter, pouring more power into his hand to try to break it. However, he shoved the axe back hard, forcing the skull guy to release his grip. Then Asura stepped forward and smashed his fist into the masked face. It is futile to target this king with just that. The powerful punch shattered the skull mask into pieces. The fighter flew backward a long distance and crashed hard. Asura smirked and said, "Try harder." After that heavy blow, a voice echoed from the fallen figure, "I can't forgive. I will never forgive." The fighter slowly stood up. Their eyes glowed with fiery anger. Yuta stared in shock, mouth wide open. That person. The hoodie fell back a little. It was a woman. A large mark covered part of her face. She still held her axe tightly and glared at them. "Why did you all destroy my tower?"
Yuta looked at the shadowy figure. His eyes opened wide in surprise and shock. He said, "Well, it's true that we destroyed a tower. But we weren't sure if it was your tower." Nova also looked surprised and shocked by his words. The figure gritted her teeth in fury. Then she shouted angrily, "Don't play dumb! I clearly saw you destroy the tower," she asked loudly. "What is your goal? Why are you doing this?" Asura stayed silent. His narrow eyes and cold expression showed nothing. But she kept talking. "If it weren't for you, because of you, I've been wandering this empty, desolate world for 2 whole years." Yuta looked surprised again but kept listening quietly. She continued, "I would have returned to my original world long ago." Before she could say more, Asura suddenly raised his hand and hit her hard on the head. She fell down unconscious. Asura said coldly, "Why does a loser have so much to say?" Yuta was shocked. He could not believe what just happened. The sun was setting. The sky grew cold, and night was coming soon. After some time, she woke up. She sat on the ground. Yuta and Nova stood beside her. She said softly, "I'm sorry. I misunderstood you. And I almost hurt you." She touched her head sadly and whispered, "I'm truly sorry." Yuta smiled happily. He gently put his hand on her head and said, "It's fine. It was an understandable mistake. Please stand up." Nova also felt happy. He held Yuta's sword in his hand. She stood up on her feet. Yuta said kindly, "By the way, it's really surprising that you reached the top of the tower with those stats." Then he asked curiously, "Miss Kalina, may I check your status window one more time?" Kalina said, "Oh, one moment." She opened her status window and showed it to Yuta. "Here's my profile. Kalina level 86 HP, 80,000 MP, 120,000 STR, 1 AGI, 1 INT, 1 LUK, 1 remaining stat points, 86 million. Yuta's eyes opened wide in shock. He thought to himself, "This is unbelievable. No matter how many times I look at it. She really reached the top of the tower with these stats?" He looked at Kalina, still shocked, and thought, these numbers mean she just leveled up over and over but never used her stat points. To think something like this is possible. Is this person also a powerhouse on the same level as that mister? Yuta stood beside her and asked. You said you didn't see anything at the top of the tower. Right. Kalina nodded. Right. There was nothing. Not even normal monsters appeared. Instead, I got a message saying stats are insufficient, and then the tower started to disappear. Yuda put his hand on his chin and thought for a moment. Then he said, "An error happened because the stats were not enough. As expected, that must be Eshua's doing." Kalina looked surprised. "Eshua," Yuda explained. "Eshua is the entity that gave us these status windows and powers. It also called us to the tower. We are chasing that entity so we can return to our original world." Kalina looked at Asura and said, "If that's true, then that person too." She asked, "But what is he doing right now?" Asura was sitting on the ground. He held the special power they got from the previous tower keeper in both hands. He closed his eyes. Energy started flowing around his body. Yuda looked at him too and said nervously, "Good question." Suddenly, the power in Asura's hands floated into the air. His mana glowed brighter and stronger. He was trying to unlock and release his sealed dantian. All at once, Asura released a huge burst of energy. The powerful pressure made nearby rocks fly away. A strong stream of energy shot straight up into the sky. Yuda and Nova quickly covered themselves as the pressure wave hit them hard. Yuda shouted, "What is this now?" Asura's body was wrapped in glowing chains. A bright blue aura flowed around him. The chains were blocking his dantian. Yuda saw it and thought, he's just trying to recover his dantian. Why are the effects so dramatic and flashy? Suddenly, a strange aura struck Yuda's mind. He froze in fear. His face turned dark. His eyes glowed with strange light. He grabbed his head and thought, "My head." Suddenly. Then he screamed in pain. Suddenly, a memory hits Yuda. He sees a huge mansion being destroyed by a massive explosion. Dust flies everywhere. Fireballs fall from the sky, crashing into the mansion and burning everything around it. A strange figure stands high in the sky, throwing powerful fire down with great force. Eshua looks up at the figure, crying loudly and screaming, "No!" Yuda feels confused. He thinks, what are these memories? That face looks somehow familiar. Meanwhile, Asura stands up slowly. Dust swirls around his feet. He raises his hand and says, "My internal energy has started flowing a little. But it's still too weak. I need much more power to unseal my dantian." He thinks of Eshua and mutters, "The seal that woman put on me. I have to break it using that power, right?" A smirk appears on his face. Interesting. Then Asura looks at Kalina and Yuda. "I've found a way to regain my full strength. If I absorb these energies, I can completely restore my dantian." He smirks again. "So hurry up. Let's go to the next tower, kid." Yuda steps forward and asks, "But not every tower has a successor's power, right? Some towers might not have one yet." Suddenly, a voice says, "No. I know the way." Yuda turns around, shocked. "Nova." He stares in surprise. "Why do you look?" A purple aura flows around Nova's body, the same power that belonged to the tower sprite puppet from before. Nova speaks calmly, "I don't know what happened either, but I can feel it. Everything in this world, all the powers, big and small." She releases a small burst of purple aura. "I think I know where the successor's powers are heading. I can guide you, Yuda." Yuda listens carefully, his face turning serious. Nova looks determined and says to where the successor's powers are being used. Yuda nods, his expression now strong and focused. Then our next destination is set. Scene change. A large mansion stands hidden in thick night fog. Bright lights shine from its windows. Inside, the air moves gently, but everything stays quiet, only silence echoes. Suddenly, footsteps ring out through the halls. A tall, quiet man with long ears steps forward. He wears a single monocle over one eye. He speaks clearly. "The Bloodwind Fields, the farmlands personally designed by the Demon King, are collecting their monthly harvest share as maintenance fees. The Dark Mine, as planned, delivers 1 gold bar every month. The Demon King sits on his grand throne." He laughs loudly. "Good, good. At this rate, 1,000,000 coins won't be far away." He looks at the long-haired man and says, "Graydon, you've worked hard for a long time. Take some rest." Graydon bows slightly and replies, however, "There is one unusual matter." The Demon King raises an eyebrow. "Unusual matter?" Graydon nods, "Yes. While a soldier was patrolling the eastern wall, he reported seeing an unidentified group. It's not confirmed yet, but based on my own judgment of their identity. In the demon realm, it seems a new hero party has appeared." The Demon King leans forward. "A new hero party? Have they still not learned their lesson?" A mad smirk spreads across his face. His eyes glow with a fierce red aura. 2 sharp demon horns on his head pulse with bloody red energy. He speaks in a low, dangerous voice. "All right, fine. Whoever they are, let them come. No matter who it is." The scene shifts. He sees Yuda, Nova, Kalina, and Asura in the distance. The Demon King laughs darkly and finishes, They won't be able to take even a single step inside my castle.
A system message appeared, player Kalina's stats confirmed. System code approved. Transporting to tower number 008. After they arrived, everyone looked surprised. Yuta waved his hands and cried, "What the? We are inside the tower already? Just like that?" He rubbed his head happily and nervously, then said to Asura, "This is so easy. If you have stats in this world, things are much better." He laughed. Asura answered calmly, "Pathetic fool. You still talk about those blue windows. Even this time is wasted. I need to heal my dantian fast." Asura then looked at Nova and asked, "Hey kid, where is that successor person?" Nova pointed with his finger and said, "The successor's power is right inside. It is a big mansion over there." Inside the big mansion, a voice rang out, "You failed to defeat the Demon King again, Hero Evan." A man with a beard shouted, "How long do we have to wait until you kill the Demon King?" Evan smiled, rubbed his head nervously, and said, "We were so close. But the equipment broke at the last moment, you know." He laughed again. He added cleverly, "If you give us just a little better equipment, I am sure we can do it this time." The king, who sat on the throne with a big mustache and beard, said in shock, "Equipment? A few months ago we gave you the best equipment, right?" Evan answered with shame, Yes, but those weapons were not my style." Ha ha ha. With a big smile, thinking of a beautiful lady, he added, "Oh, and while we are at it, can we pick some new saintesses? My holy power feels weak lately." The king gritted his teeth in anger and shouted, "Your shamelessness has no limit." Then he roared, "Evan James. You are no longer the hero of our kingdom. You are banished." Suddenly, many spears floated around Evan. He looked surprised. He waved his hand nervously, laughed in confusion, and asked, "Why are you acting like this again? I am telling you, this time will be different. I have a secret weapon ready." Before he could finish, the king yelled, "Do you think I do not know? You used the fight against the Demon King as an excuse to waste the kingdom's money and live wildly." The king's eyes narrowed. He looked serious and said, "If you do not leave right now, I will kill you here." Evan James smirked, raised one hand, and said, "You are too angry today. Do you know how much I have done for this country?" Suddenly, a loud explosion happened behind him. The wall blew apart. Rocks flew everywhere. The guards and Evan were shocked. One guard cried in fear, "What is this?" Another asked, "What is happening?" A third guard saw Asura and shouted, "Don't tell me. Is this a raid by the Demon King's army?" Nova pointed at Evan and said to Asura, "It's that person. I can feel the successor's power coming from him." Evan James stood there in shock and panic. Asura made a fist. Air gathered around it. He bent low, ready to attack, and shouted, "If you don't want to die, hand over your power right now." One guard yelled, "How dare you cause trouble here? Do you not know where you are?" Another guard shouted, "Subdue that bastard at once. The punishment for insulting the royal family is immediate execution." Asura swung his fist. A wave of air pressure flew out and hit the two guards. They flew into the air and crashed hard. Evan stayed in his spot, still shaking with fear. Then he looked at Asura with cold eyes and thought, "What was that just now?" Two royal guards sent flying. With only one punch. This guy is. Suddenly Evan smirked. He started laughing loudly and shouted with excitement, "Look, Your Majesty. These people are the secret weapon I told you about." Asura looked at him in confusion. Yuta and Kalina also looked confused. But Evan kept talking. "It is not just this man who has superhuman strength. Every single person here is much stronger than an average S-rank mercenary. With these people, we will surely defeat the Demon King Belzer." Nova, Yuta, Kalina, and Asura still stood in the same place. Asura gritted his teeth in anger and asked, "What?" Outside the kingdom, people were walking around normally. They had no idea what was happening inside the palace. Inside, Asura punched Evan James, sending him flying into a large pillar. The pillar was crushed from the impact. Asura shouted at him as air swirled around his body, "What kind of bullshit are you spouting?" Evan James slowly got up with a smile and said, Sorry. Are you guys new players? Or successors?" Yuta looked confused and replied, Well, we are." Before he could finish speaking, Evan James put his hand on Yuta's shoulder excitedly and said, "No, forget it. That kind of thing isn't important right now. It seems you're after the successor's power." In that case, you've come to the right place. He gave a thumbs up and said, let's defeat the Demon King together. Asura shouted in anger. His eyes burned with rage, his face turned dark, and his body filled with burning fury as he yelled, shut up already and stop this nonsense. I just need to extract that power from your body. Evan James's eyes became dark and serious. He said, oh really? Then he smiled and continued, then try taking it. You seem confident that you won't destroy the successor's power by extracting it by force. Asura narrowed his eyes and asked, what did you say? Evan James replied calmly, what? Didn't you know? If you forcibly take another successor's power, it gets destroyed. So if you help me complete the Demon King subjugation quest, I'll hand over my power willingly. Hearing this, Nova and Yuta opened their eyes wide in confusion but said nothing. Asura said with cold eyes, enough. That's a worthless proposal. Suddenly, Yuta spoke up, Mister, wait a moment. It might actually be true. Lee Chanwoo's power wasn't taken by force either. He gave it to us himself. Evan James narrowed his eyes as a green aura flowed through them. He raised his hand to shake Yuta's hand and asked happily, you're someone I can talk to, huh? Nice to meet you, I'm Evan. Yuta replied, ah. Yes, I am Kim Yuta. Then Yuta asked nervously, I have a question though. About not being able to take the successor's power by force, how do you? Before Yuta could finish, Evan James said, now then, what about the rest of you? Deal? Kalina replied, I don't trust him, but it seems we don't have much of a choice. What do you think? Asura looked at Kalina and listened quietly. Then he pointed at Evan James and said, if I sense even the slightest trickery, I will twist your neck immediately. Evan James replied, of course, and laughed. He clapped his hands and said, anyway, since we've come to an agreement, shall we get our equipment sorted first? The scene changed. Lava flowed down the mountains. Smoke filled the air. The place looked like hell. When they arrived, Evan James looked around and said, so this is the demon realm where the Demon King lives. It is much bigger than I thought. Asura, Kalina, Nova, and Yuta stared in shock. Their eyes grew wide with surprise. But Evan James shouted with excitement, now. Let's go defeat the Demon King. Suddenly Asura got angry and threw away the new equipment he had just put on. Evan James saw it and asked quickly, huh? What do you think you're doing? Asura changed back into his old clothes and said, things like this only get in the way. I don't need them. Evan James looked confused and said, okay. But it was expensive though. Then he turned to Kalina and asked, you don't need it either? Kalina looked at her equipment and said, I like it. Asura said quickly, stop wasting time. Where is the Demon King? Evan James replied, usually in these hero stories, we have to reach the Demon King's castle first. The Demon King's castle was huge. Dark red light glowed inside. Thick fog covered the area. Outside, many rocket launchers moved into position. A few minutes later, all the rockets launched into the air. Dust flew everywhere around the castle. The ground where Yuta, Asura, Nova, and Evan James stood was marked as the target. Yuta looked up and shouted, what are those? Wait. Don't tell me those are missiles. Oh no. This is so unfair right from the start. The missiles are coming straight at us. Inside the Demon King's castle, the Demon King sat on his throne and said, stupid hero bastard. Have you still not learned your lesson after getting beaten so many times? I will deal with you properly this time. Using my greatest masterpiece. Anti-hero hybrid state-of-the-art fully armed absolute fortress Ver 82. Evan, I will wipe you out perfectly. From the Demon King's castle. The Demon King laughed like a madman. He used the system to mark their position and launched the missile attack on the hero. The group stood below, watching the rockets fly toward them in panic. Evan James raised his hand, gathering his purple aura into his palm. The energy formed a glowing purple sphere, and his eyes shone with the same powerful light. He released the aura toward the missiles flying at them. The purple energy blocked all the missiles at once, and they disappeared instantly. Evan turned his head and shouted, is everyone alright? Yuta and Nova stood there in shock. Yuta thought, that's amazing. To block all those attacks at once. He's a bit annoying, but a successor is a successor after all, huh? Evan clenched his teeth in anger. That Belzer. Are you planning to go all out from the start again? He looked at Yuta and Asura seriously. Listen carefully. Everyone. Every piece of land here in the demon realm is part of a dungeon created by the Demon King. The lava, the rocks, the trees, everything you see can become his weapon. If you let your guard down for even a second, you never know when or where an attack will come from. Suddenly, a fire cannon loaded and began shooting at Evan and Yuta. They quickly blocked the attack together. On top of his castle, the Demon King stood holding the fire cannon. "You've brought companions again, hero Evan," he shouted with a mad laugh. "Did you really think I would let you climb to my castle so easily?" Evan gritted his teeth and stepped forward. "Demon King Belzer. How long are you going to hide? If you call yourself a Demon King, come out and fight me fair and square." His purple aura flared even stronger around his eyes. "No matter how much you try to hide, you can never stop me." Demon King Belzer laughed loudly. "Very well. If that is your will, then it cannot be helped. In that case, I shall resist that will with all my might." Suddenly, a blue screen appeared in front of him. Yuta and Nova stared in shock. Yuta's eyes widened. "That's a status window?" He looked at Demon King Belzer in disbelief. "Wait. Does that mean the Demon King is a player too?" The Demon King laughed madly as purple aura flowed around his body. "Now, heroes, watch closely." Suddenly, puzzle-like walls rose from the ground and surrounded Yuta and Kalina. They were shocked and quickly prepared themselves. Demon King Belzer shouted, "I personally designed this new Demon Realm dungeon just for you." The walls completely trapped them. Everyone felt a sudden sense of danger. Then a system notification appeared in the air, downloading new map data. A new dungeon has been updated in the Demon Realm. Target entities are being transported to the new dungeon. The scene changed. They found themselves inside a dark and dangerous cave. Fire torches burned along the walls. Poison gas floated in the air, and human skulls were scattered on the ground. Suddenly, "Run!" Yuta panicked and ran as fast as he could. A giant rock rolled behind him. "Why are there so many traps?" he shouted. Then he remembered, "I only touched one brick. Why did all this suddenly activate?" His eyes were wide with fear. And he was breathing heavily. No matter how many traps are hidden here, this is too much. Just then, Kalina appeared. She swung her weapon and destroyed the giant rolling rock in one hit. The rock shattered into pieces. After landing, Kalina asked, "Are you alright?" Yuta gave a nervous laugh. "Miss Kalina, you're safe." She looked around. "Where are the others? What is this place?" Yuta glanced around the dark cave. "It looks like this is a dungeon created by the Demon King himself." "A dungeon?" Kalina asked, confused. Yuta smiled slightly. "Yes. Are you not familiar with them? They often appear in games." He continued explaining, "A dungeon usually has a maze-like structure. Monsters and traps are placed randomly everywhere." Kalina nodded slowly. "I see. You're right. This place is like a maze. I tried taking different paths several times, but I ended up in the same spot." She looked worried. "How can we even escape from here?" Yuta's expression became serious. "First, we need to find Asura and Evan. If Asura is here, I'm sure we'll find a way to break this trick." Meanwhile, Asura gathered air around his fist and punched the wall in front of him. The wall exploded into pieces, and dust filled the air. Evan looked at him in shock. "No, mister. I told you not to smash everything like that. Because of you, it's even harder for me to find the path now." Asura glanced at him coldly. "Don't order me around, you foolish man who only talks. I will find my own path." He walked through the hole he had just created. Evan stayed silent for a moment. Then he spoke coldly, "Fine. Do whatever you want. Even if you keep smashing walls, you'll just end up back at the starting point." Nova stood nearby, quietly watching. Evan held a Pathfinder device and tried to check the direction. That Belzer. He really prepared well this time. Even with this Pathfinder, I can't find the correct route. He sat down and gave a small, tired laugh. "Is this another failure? We're still so far from catching the Demon King. It's always hard just to reach his castle." His expression became sad. "If nothing changes, I won't be able to return to the kingdom." Nova looked at him seriously. "Hey, Evan. Why didn't you tell me before?" Evan looked at her, confused. "Tell you what?" Nova continued, "That besides you, there was another successor in this tower." Evan narrowed his eyes slightly. "What do you mean?" I'm not sure I understand. Nova shouted, stop pretending. Demon King Belzer is clearly a player just like you. And from him, I felt the same successor's power. Evan James smirked. You're an interesting kid. Then he spoke calmly. Yeah. That's right. There are 2 successors in this tower. When I received the successor's power, there was another player with me on the top floor. Nova's eyes widened, if you mean another player. Are you talking about Belzer? Evan gave a small smile. Yes. We thought we had cleared the tower by combining our strength. But it seems that wasn't the case from Goddess Eshua's point of view. Because of that, the successor's power was split in half. Later, we chose different paths. One went to the human realm, where humans live. And the other went to the demon realm, where monsters rule. Nova looked shocked. Then when you said you would give us the successor's power, before Nova could finish, Evan interrupted with a wide smile. That wasn't a lie. But it's impossible to give power that isn't complete yet. And more than that, I have no interest in becoming the true successor of this tower. He smirked again. My only goal is to kill Demon King Belzer. Nova's eyes opened wide in shock. Evan stood up straight and stretched his back. He looked up and spoke softly, this story got longer than I expected. Don't think too much about it. He laughed lightly. Now then. Let's try to find the path through this dungeon again. Suddenly, boom. Asura appeared out of nowhere and smashed another wall. Rocks flew everywhere. Evan stared at him in disbelief. Ah. You really don't listen at all. I told you that you would just end up back here anyway. He sighed. To escape this dungeon, first we need to understand where we are, Asura interrupted him. Stop your nonsense and just follow me, you talkative fool. I have already found a way out of this place. Both Nova and Evan were shocked. What? Evan asked in disbelief. The scene shifted. In a dark area, a long staircase led deeper underground. At the bottom stood one of Demon King Belzer's subordinates, holding a sword. He slowly looked up and muttered, the hero. Has he escaped the maze? He tightened his grip on his sword. Then I suppose I will handle this personally. In the dungeon of the Demon King, Yuda looked around and said to Kalina, as expected. We've returned to the place with this statue again. It seems that in this dungeon, if you choose the wrong path, you have to start from the beginning. Confused, Yuda asked, then how are we supposed to find the right way? No matter how much we mark the walls. Kalina replied, it's useless. The marks disappear when we come back. Then Kalina looked at the statue carefully and said, isn't there something strange about this statue? Was it always this small? Yuda looked at it again and replied, you're right. It definitely seems smaller. The shape also looks a bit sloppy. Suddenly, Yuda remembered something. Wait. This dungeon is. Don't tell me. He quickly turned to Kalina. I think I found a way, Miss Kalina. Kalina stayed silent, looking at him with doubt. Yuda said seriously, just trust me this once. Let's go back the way we came. Kalina looked confused. What are you talking about? Go back the way we came? What good will that do? Yuda laughed a little, don't be so stiff. Instead of wandering around without a plan, isn't it better to try something? After thinking for a moment, Kalina sighed. Fine. In a situation like this, we have to try something if we want to escape. So they both walked back along the path they had already taken. After a few minutes, their footsteps stopped. They had reached the same place again. Kalina frowned. Yuda. How did this happen? Instead of finding the exit. We're back here again. But Yuda showed a wide smile. His teeth clenched nervously. Just as I thought. It's exactly as I predicted, he said. No, that's not it. It looks like the same place, but we actually moved one stage forward. Then he pointed ahead. Miss Kalina, look over there. Kalina turned her head and widened her eyes. That is. The torch is lit? Yuda smiled. From now on, until all those torches are lit, we're going to search for anomalies in this dungeon. Kalina blinked in confusion. Anomalies? Wait, explain that for a second. What does that mean? Yuda explained calmly. Simply put, an anomaly is something different from the normal dungeon. For example, a trap suddenly appearing where there wasn't one before, or the structure of the dungeon changing in a strange way. All of these count as anomalies. He continued, the rule is simple. If there are no anomalies, we move forward. But if we notice an anomaly, we immediately turn back. And we keep repeating this until all the torches are lit. Kalina still looked confused and nervous. Really? I don't fully understand what you're saying. But you mean we can escape, right? Yuta laughed again. Yes, don't worry. I've played a lot of games like this. Just trust me and follow me. They continued repeating the same process. Every time they returned, another torch became brighter. Finally, after repeating it many times, they reached a place where they could feel strong air pressure coming from a large gate. Yuta smiled when he felt the wind. Finally. The path is open. Kalina looked shocked. I can't believe it. How were you able to solve this riddle? Yuta laughed proudly. I told you. Games like this are a piece of cake. Then he pointed at the statue again. I'm the type of person who has to play every new game that comes out. When I saw the statue getting smaller at the start, I immediately understood what kind of trick this dungeon had. Kalina still looked a little confused, but she smiled. Anyway, thanks to you we survived, Yuta. Let's go down quickly and find the rest of our party. They walked down the path and soon reached a huge gate. Yuta stopped in shock. Where? Before he could finish, Kalina asked, is this the place? Yuta looked around nervously. Asura. Evan James. Where on earth are they? Suddenly, a shadow moved like a ghost behind Yuta. A man holding a sword rushed forward and attacked him from behind. Kalina noticed it immediately and shouted, Yuta, watch out. She quickly stepped in and blocked the attack with her axe. The sword and axe collided with a loud sound, and yellow sparks flew into the air. The attacker looked at them with cold eyes. He was one of the Demon King's subordinates. Holding Kalina's axe back with his sword, he said calmly, to think you made it this far. Companions of the hero. Then he raised his sword and poured his aura into it. To solve the maze personally designed by Lord Demon King. Your abilities are quite impressive. Not far away. Yuta held his sword tightly and rushed forward angrily to attack. But the Demon King's subordinate continued speaking, however. As long as I am alive. In a flash, he moved faster than the eye could see and cut through Yuta's attack. With me here. You will never reach Lord Demon King. Yuta suddenly cried out in pain as the blade cut him. A wound opened on his body. What is this speed? His eyes widened in shock. I can't follow his movements at all. At that moment, Kalina stepped forward. She gripped her axe tightly and jumped high into the air for a powerful attack. The Demon King's subordinate calmly looked up at her. As Kalina swung her axe down, he simply bent his body and dodged the attack with ease. Then he moved again, his sword flashing like lightning. He launched many fast attacks. Kalina quickly moved her axe to block and dodge the strikes. After avoiding the attacks, she rushed forward and swung her axe again, releasing a wave of purple aura from it, but in the next moment, the enemy was suddenly behind her. Kalina froze in shock. When did he? The Demon King's subordinate took advantage of the moment. His eyes turned cold as air began to swirl around his blade. He swung his sword rapidly, attacking from many directions. Kalina panicked. She had no time to react. Several cuts appeared on her body. Damn it, he's attacking from all directions, if I want to catch him. Is that the only way? She poured purple aura into her axe. At that moment, the Demon King's subordinate stopped attacking. He looked at her and said calmly, your strength is acceptable. But your attacks are far too slow. Then his killing aura filled the air. You will never defeat me. Before he could finish speaking, the single-lens glasses he wore over one eye suddenly cracked and broke. He looked shocked. Kalina, breathing heavily and wounded, replied, my attacks are slow. Suddenly, a system screen appeared in front of her. Inventory, retrieving registered equipment. After the system notification, a large heavy machine gun appeared in Kalina's hands. She lifted the weapon and pointed it at him. Then she said calmly, then try dodging this too. Yuta felt surprised. His eyes widened in shock as he thought, Miss Kalina's weapon has changed all of a sudden. Then he realized, I see. She used the inventory window to switch weapons, but even with a different type of weapon, it wouldn't be easy to defeat the boss. At that moment, Kalina began using the weapon and fired it rapidly. The intense heat from the gunfire spread across the area. On the other side, the Demon King's subordinate dodged all the bullets and stepped aside. Holding his blade tightly, he prepared to launch a counterattack. However, Kalina quickly opened her inventory window again and summoned a garnet. She grabbed it in her hand and immediately threw it toward him. The Demon King's subordinate swung his blade and cut the garnet into two pieces. But suddenly, smoke burst out from it. The Demon King subordinate was shocked. His eyes widened as he realized, that's a smoke bomb. Could it be that from the very beginning? Her plan was to block my view. Kalina switched weapons again, replacing it with a blade. She drew the blade and swung it toward the Demon King subordinate, provoking him to respond with his own sword. Then she switched weapons once more. A system notification appeared, retrieving registered equipment from inventory. Switching equipment to battle staff, Kalina immediately launched the electric weapon toward the Demon King's subordinate. He blocked the attack with his blade. But the moment his blade touched the weapon, electric energy burst out like thunder, spreading across the entire area. Lightning-like energy crackled everywhere. Yuta was stunned. Muttering to himself, he said, how can this be? How many weapons is she using in a single battle? Her weapon proficiency and combat power make my stats seem completely insignificant. The electric explosion filled the area with energy and landed a critical hit on the Demon King's subordinate. He grabbed his arm with his right hand but then smirked. I've never seen a player like this before, he said. Not only does she switch weapons during battle, but she can also handle various types of weapons freely. He then raised his blade, and purple energy began flowing around it. However, it's just a trivial skill. The purple energy spread across his body as a powerful aura surged around him, shocking Kalina. He continued, I have yet to use even 10% of the ancient demon power sealed within this sword. Feeling the overwhelming purple aura, Yuta was shocked, sweat forming on his face. Kalina was also stunned, frozen in place. The Demon King's subordinate held his sword firmly and began unleashing the ancient demon power sealed within it. If I release the true power sealed in this sword, he said coldly, your little tricks will mean nothing. But just as he began unleashing that power, the rooftop suddenly shattered. A figure fell through the broken roof. It was Asura. He landed directly where the Demon King's subordinate stood. Asura's foot struck the subordinate's head with tremendous force. The sudden attack shocked the Demon King's subordinate, leaving him no time to react. He slammed into the ground with a critical hit, cracking the floor beneath him. Asura calmly stood there as the Demon King's subordinate collapsed, completely unconscious from the unexpected attack. The defeated enemy lay motionless on the ground. Looking down at him, Asura asked casually, who is this guy? Deep inside the dungeon, Yuta looked at Asura and asked, excuse me? You came all the way here. By destroying the floor? He nervously rubbed his cheek and continued, using such a brute method. You could escape the dungeon like that, huh? That's just like you, Mr. Asura. Then he laughed awkwardly. Evan James laughed loudly and waved his hand. At first, I didn't believe it myself. He suddenly started breaking walls and somehow found his way here. He then looked at Asura and said, I thought this mister was only strong, but he's far more capable than I imagined. Asura glanced at him with cold eyes but didn't respond. After a moment, he spoke. Enough with the small talk. Then he asked coldly. What exactly is this bastard? What does he have to do with that so-called Demon King? Evan James replied, this guy is the butler of the Demon King Belzer and the de facto second-in-command of the Demon Realm, Graydon. His expression became serious as he continued. Every time we tried to attack the Demon Realm, he appeared as the boss of a dungeon designed by Belzer himself, blocking me and my companions from reaching the Demon King's castle. Especially when he transitions to Phase 2, the difficulty becomes overwhelming. It becomes nearly impossible to read his patterns with normal strategies. Then he smiled slightly. So we're quite fortunate. Before he could transition to Phase 2, this monstrous mister here crushed him into unconsciousness. He crossed his arms, smirked, and said, even though he didn't reach Phase 2, the fact that you two faced Graydon alone means you're quite skilled, aren't you? Yuta smiled nervously. Oh, it's nothing. It's all thanks to Ms. Kalina. I just watched from the back. Then Yuta suddenly asked, so now? Is the dungeon completely cleared? Since we defeated the boss, let's quickly find the exit. With a big smile, he added, if we cleared the dungeon, there must be an exit somewhere around here. Kalina pointed her finger forward and asked calmly, by exit? Are you talking about that? A massive door that had been closed until a moment ago was now slowly opening. Yuta laughed. You're right. Then let's get out through the exit. The group stood before the huge dungeon gate. Yuta said excitedly, let's ride this momentum and quickly take down the Demon King. Asura looked at Evan James and spoke with irritation. Hey, damn hero. How long do we have to repeat this wretched exercise? His eyes narrowed, when will I finally meet this so-called Demon King? Evan James laughed casually and replied. We're almost there. Just hang on a little longer. If we clear the next stage, we'll finally get to see the Demon King. He smiled brightly. So let's all hold on just a bit more. Yuda looked confused and said, ah. Yes. But Mr. Evan. How do you know we'll meet the Demon King after the next stage? You mentioned earlier that you were stuck at the Graydon stage. Evan James laughed and said, isn't it obvious? After a mid-boss, there's usually the main boss. He tapped Yuda on the back while laughing. Even though I look like this, I'm quite a game enthusiast. You see, this much is basic knowledge. Then he asked, alright then, shall we move? I'll stay behind to check for any remaining gimmicks, so you guys go ahead. Yuda felt confused but didn't question him. Instead, he replied in a slightly panicked voice, understood. Then we'll head to the next stage first. Mr. Evan, please join us quickly if you sense any danger. With that, they all moved forward toward the large door, leaving Evan James behind. Evan James stood there silently, watching them leave. Then a smirk appeared on his face. Now then. He muttered quietly. Shall I finish what remains? His gaze shifted toward Graydon, the Demon King's subordinate and butler. Evan James raised his hand, gathering purple aura around it. He then directed the energy toward Graydon and gave a command, Otherworld Warehouse Storage. Graydon's body slowly began to dissolve into the purple energy and was gradually absorbed into the strange storage space. Moments later, Evan James himself teleported into that same space using his purple aura. Inside the storage, numerous bodies of Graydon were already piled up behind him. Evan James smirked. With this. Is it already the 70th? Standing proudly in front of the growing collection. He let out a strange, almost crazy smile, then he whispered coldly, Belzer. Let's see you put in a little more effort. After clearing the dungeon, they all arrived at the first floor of the Demon King's castle. Nova and Yuda's eyes widened in shock. Nova looked around and asked, this place. Is this really the Demon King's castle? Yuda laughed and turned to Evan James. We arrived much faster than I thought we would. To think we've already entered the Demon King's castle. We'll be able to defeat him in no time. He laughed again and added confidently, besides, no matter how strong the Demon King is he really a match for Mr. Monster? With just one punch from him, the Demon King will be completely smashed to bits. Evan James chuckled, crossing his arms. It's true that he's strong, but we still shouldn't let our guard down. Yuda. Evan then smiled calmly and continued, this place might look like an ordinary Demon King's castle, but it's actually a massive dungeon designed by Belzer himself. Yuda frowned in confusion. This place is a single massive dungeon? But even so, there are no monsters appearing at all. Don't tell me it's like that previous dungeon, and we have to find some kind of anomaly again. Suddenly, a strange figure began to materialize in front of them. Yuda noticed it immediately. Before it could fully form, he quickly drew his sword and shouted in confusion, what the hell is that? Is it a monster summoned by the Demon King? He paused, narrowing his eyes. No wait. That's not a monster. It looks more like dummy data. At that moment, the Demon King's voice echoed throughout the castle, you've done well to make it this far, heroes. Everyone was startled as the voice continued. Even my loyal servant, Graydon, wasn't enough to stop you. But it won't be so easy this time. He laughed menacingly. I've already collected all your combat data. Now behold, heroes. Created by duplicating only your strongest data. My magnificent masterpiece. Yuda froze. Standing before them was a duplicate of Asura. His eyes widened in disbelief as he shouted, no way. Everyone stared in confusion at the Asura duplicate. Asura narrowed his eyes and stepped forward. What the hell are you? Why does a lowly wretch like you dare to assume my form? Yuda, still shaken, thought to himself, what is going on? There are two Mr. Monsters. You're telling me that just by duplicating data, something like this is possible? Asura walked up to his duplicate and smirked. How amusing. A puppet mimicking me? He placed a hand on its shoulder and said coldly, but can you truly copy it? A mere puppet like you. He smirked again. Copying my fist. In an instant, the duplicate struck. Its fist slammed into Asura's face, sending him flying backward into the wall. A powerful explosion followed. The duplicate lowered its fist, a faint smirk forming on its face, almost as if it were superior to the original. Yuda stood frozen, completely shocked by what he had just witnessed. Asura stood back up, his expression turning serious as he stepped toward his duplicate. "No, that's not right," he said coldly. "My fist cannot be this weak." A smirk formed on his face as he bent slightly, gathering mana into his fist. Taking a firm stance, he pulled his arm back and shouted, "Try copying it properly." In the next instant, he launched a powerful punch toward the duplicate. The duplicate responded immediately, throwing its own fist forward. The two attacks collided, creating a massive surge of air pressure that rippled through the surroundings. Suddenly, Asura followed up with a swift kick, knocking the duplicate's fist aside and pushing it slightly backward, but the duplicate quickly regained its balance. It bent down, gathered mana into its own fist, and retaliated with a powerful punch. Asura barely managed to block it with both hands, but the force of the blow pushed him backward. He dug his feet into the ground, using his hands to steady himself. The duplicate didn't stop. It stepped forward again, launching another punch. Asura dodged it, but the duplicate continued its relentless assault, striking again and again. Asura kept evading, yet each attack forced him further back. Watching from the side, Yuda was stunned. "No way. It's actually fighting on par with Mr. Monster?" He swallowed hard, his eyes filled with disbelief. "Maybe it's just my imagination, but it feels like the real Mr. Monster is being pushed back." Meanwhile, Kalina loaded his heavy machine gun with purple mana. Holding it firmly, he pulled the trigger and fired at Asura's duplicate. Just as the bullets were about to hit, the duplicate turned around with a smirk and opened the Otherworld Universal Warehouse. The incoming bullets were instantly absorbed into the portal and vanished. Kalina's mouth fell open, his eyes wide with disbelief at what he had just seen. The duplicate, still gripping Asura's fist with one hand, raised its other hand and activated the warehouse again. The bullets that had just disappeared suddenly reappeared, changing direction and shooting back toward Kalina. The bullets grazed past Kalina's hair so quickly that he didn't even have time to react. He froze in place, completely stunned. Taking advantage of the moment, Asura stepped forward and threw a punch, shouting, "Keep your eyes on me, you arrogant fool." However, the duplicate simply bent down and dodged the attack with ease. Asura continued throwing punches, but the duplicate avoided each one effortlessly. Then, the duplicate summoned an item from its inventory, a warhammer. Gripping it tightly, it swung the weapon with tremendous force and unleashed a skill, Six Paths Smash. The hammer slammed into Asura, sending him flying backward into the wall. Yuda shouted in shock, "Asura?" At that moment, the Demon King's voice echoed through the castle once again. He laughed loudly. "This is it. Its performance is top-notch, isn't it?" Watching through a system screen, the Demon King continued mockingly, "See? I told you. I duplicated your strongest data. Even if the four of you combine your strength, victory is not guaranteed. So stop wasting your time and get the hell out of the demon realm." Evan James clenched his teeth angrily. "That bastard Belzer. He sure likes to talk a lot of trash." He narrowed his eyes. "To think he could even duplicate my abilities. I didn't expect things to turn out like this. So all this time, he wasn't just sitting back and waiting for us." He then looked at Asura and shouted, "Hey, mister. Snap out of it. You're not actually dead, are you? Just like the Demon King said, we can only beat that thing if we combine our strength." Suddenly, Asura began to laugh madly. How amusing. A purple aura started to flow around him as he smirked. "You dare to mimic my martial arts?" He stood up and stepped forward, his anger rising. "I don't know how you managed to copy my form, but it's quite an interesting trick." He slammed his foot onto the ground with a heavy impact. "In that case." Bending slightly, he pulled his fist back into an attacking stance, his smirk widening. "Try copying this martial art as well." Asura launched a devastating punch toward the duplicate. The force of his fist struck directly, triggering a massive explosion that burned like fire. The duplicate panicked as its right arm was completely destroyed by the attack. However, it quickly regenerated the limb. Without hesitation, it accessed its system inventory and withdrew a sword. Gripping the weapon with both hands, it gathered yellow lightning mana around the blade and activated a skill, Holy Sword of Asterion. Yuda's mouth fell open in shock. "What? Wait a minute. Isn't that my skill?" This time, the duplicate was using Yuda's ability. It swung the sword, unleashing a massive wave of radiant energy, Celestial Judgment. Seeing the incoming attack, Asura stepped forward, pulling his fist back into position. Destruction. Extreme Annihilation Strike. He unleashed a barrage of punches that collided with the wave of light, resulting in a massive explosion. The entire castle was soon covered in smoke and dust. As the haze began to settle, Asura was still standing. "You're definitely much weaker," he said calmly. He clenched his fist and looked at it. "You still lack the internal energy in your dantian to use that power to its fullest." He smirked slightly. "Well, against a mere puppet, this is more than enough." The duplicate slowly stood up again, its body regenerating once more. It stepped forward. System alert, error. Critical damage detected. A massive purple aura began to surge from its body, spreading throughout the entire castle. Even Asura froze for a brief moment as the energy intensified. System notification, activating final defense system. Forcing maximum output. On the other side, Yuta and Kalina were both stunned. Final defense system. Don't tell me, it's entering phase 2 already? The duplicate's form began to change, becoming even more powerful as overwhelming mana radiated from its body. Asura looked at it calmly and said, "You're pretty stubborn for a mere puppet." A smirk appeared on his face as he stepped forward. "Is this your final struggle? Before you die?" The duplicate puppet rushed toward Asura, blue mana flowing around its body. Asura remained standing in place, completely unfazed. Suddenly, the duplicate summoned an item from its inventory, a battle axe. Gripping it tightly, it clenched its teeth, leapt high into the air, and pulled the axe back, axe-style, earth splitter. It swung the weapon down with full force, aiming to strike Asura. At the same moment, Asura calmly gathered blazing fire mana into his fist, the energy wrapping tightly around it. Without moving from his spot, he drove his fist forward with overwhelming power. The punch landed directly on the duplicate's chest. A massive explosion erupted. The impact completely destroyed the duplicate's arms. And the immense pressure shattered its body further, breaking it apart. System notification, warning. Over 50% of data has been damaged, error, unable to recover data. This time, the damage was too severe, the duplicate could no longer regenerate. Before it could react, Asura grabbed it by the face and slammed it into the ground with brutal force. System error, critical failure. Defense system has shut down. All corresponding systems will be completely destroyed. Asura held its face against the ground, a mad smirk spreading across his face. "Enough with your mimicry," he said coldly. "Now disappear." Trash. Outside the castle, under the full moon, smoke rose and covered the entire structure. On a blue system screen, the message appeared: the duplicate puppet had been defeated. Inside the throne room, the Demon King sat watching the screen as error messages continued to appear. A fatal error has occurred. The dungeon boss summoned by player Nim is dissipating. The Demon King frowned. "What's this? What kind of ridiculous power is that?" His eyes narrowed in anger. Not only did he destroy the dungeon structure, but he even shut down the defense system. Then, he suddenly burst into laughter, as expected. "It won't be easy this time either." Leaning back on his throne, he smirked. Just where the hell did he find such a monster? His expression darkened as he spoke again. "But I've also prepared something special. Just to stop you, Evan James." He laughed madly, his voice echoing through the chamber. "This time, with my own 2 hands. I'll put an end to your plans." After clearing the first floor of the castle, they arrived at the top floor. Evan James stepped forward and said, "We've finally arrived. This is the entrance to the final stage, where the Demon King awaits." He looked at Asura and smiled proudly. "See? I was right, wasn't I? I told you we'd get here in no time if we pushed a little further." He chuckled and continued, "Of course, the only reason we made it this quickly is thanks to you, mister. You took care of all the remaining monsters in a single hit. If you weren't here, it would have been much harder just to get this far." They all stood in front of the Demon King's chamber. Suddenly, the door creaked open slightly. Evan James glanced at the others and said, "Now then. Shall we head in? Let's work together and take down the Demon King." After entering the chamber, Evan suddenly frowned. "Huh? Hold on." He looked around nervously. "What's this? Where did he go? How did he just disappear?" Scanning the room, he muttered, "Don't tell me the Demon King abandoned his own castle and ran off somewhere." Suddenly, a system notification echoed throughout the room. Warning. External intruders detected inside the Demon King's castle. Activating intruder annihilation protocol. Releasing toxic gas in all areas. A thick cloud of gas began to spread rapidly. Everyone panicked, quickly covering their mouths with their hands. Yuta's eyes widened in fear. "Don't tell me. Is this poison?" Of all things, the Demon King is using toxic gas? Footsteps echoed through the spreading gas. A figure emerged. It was the Demon King, wearing a mask that covered his mouth. He laughed as he looked at them. Judging by your expressions, the effect is certainly working. He chuckled again. How's the taste? This is the power of my newly prepared Venom X. His eyes narrowed coldly. From the moment you inhaled this toxic gas, your deaths were already guaranteed. The Demon King activated the system again. Spread more gas, he commanded. This time, an even darker and more dangerous gas began to fill the room. The Demon King stood there, waving his hand as a red aura glowed in his eyes. You were already dead, he said coldly. System notification, amount of highly toxic gas being sprayed is increasing. Danger. Toxicity concentration inside the Demon King's castle has reached 72%. Evan James covered his mouth and shouted, damn it. Everyone, hold your breath. If you inhale his poison gas, it's over. I'll distribute antidote potions to all of you right now. Before he could finish, Asura rushed forward without hesitation. He closed the distance in an instant and launched a powerful kick at the Demon King. But a barrier blocked the attack. The Demon King laughed. As expected. You're a monster. You can still move just fine even after inhaling this toxic gas? Or are you simply pretending to be okay? He raised a strange weapon, a poison gun, and fired it at Asura. The shot struck Asura's arm. How about this? The Demon King asked with a grin. Asura looked at his arm as the poison entered his body. This is. The Demon King smirked. This one will be harder to endure. It's far stronger than the previous poison. The moment it hits you, your arm will rot, and your organs will begin to collapse. Before he could finish speaking, Asura's fist slammed into his face. The impact shattered the Demon King's mask and sent him flying far across the room. Asura calmly grabbed the injection device embedded in his arm, crushed it, and smirked. How foolish. This is nothing. My body has already reached the state of absolute poison immunity. System notification, connection to the control entity has been lost. A critical error has occurred in the intruder annihilation protocol. The protocol will be forcibly terminated. Toxic gas will dissipate. On the other side, Yuta quickly drank the antidote potion. After taking a deep breath, he said, thank you, Evan James. I survived thanks to you. He looked toward the broken wall where the Demon King had been thrown. Wow. That Demon King was completely insane. Releasing poison gas the moment we entered, does that even make sense? Yuta smiled. If Evan James hadn't helped us, Kalina and I would have been dead already. Evan James laughed lightly. Ah, come on, it was nothing. I just handed out some antidote potions. I'm just glad I brought plenty of emergency items, just in case. Kalina nodded, still holding the antidote. I let my guard down too much. I should have brought at least one antidote like Evan did. I survived thanks to you. Thank you. Evan smiled and said, instead of thanking me, why don't you thank that guy over there? We were only able to make it this far. Because of him. Yuta followed his gaze and laughed. That's true. I knew he was strong, but I never imagined he'd finish it this fast. This is practically speedrun level speed. Asura, with a serious expression, spoke up. I assume you haven't forgotten our promise, Loudmouth. I've dealt with the Demon King just as you asked. So hand over that power to me at once. Evan James listened silently for a moment, then suddenly burst into laughter. Of course I haven't forgotten. Who do you take me for? He continued laughing. Now all I have to do is press the quest completion button. Don't worry, you'll obtain the successor's power completely. A blue system screen appeared in front of him. Quest, Successor's Ritual, defeat the Demon King. Will you complete the quest as is? Yes/no. Evan smirked. To think a day like this would actually come. I worked my ass off to clear this quest. He sighed, then laughed again. I constantly had to find new party members. The Demon King kept changing the dungeon mechanics, and the boss fights were ridiculously difficult. Just thinking about that butler guy gives me PTSD, you know? He shook his head. I almost grew old and died trying to raid this castle. Hearing this, Yuta looked at him in surprise. Evan. Then he laughed nervously. I know you've had a tough time, so hurry up and press the quest completion button. Evan James still didn't press the button, still. He said thoughtfully, it wasn't all bad. Whenever I went to town, everyone treated me like a hero. I could take expensive equipment and treasures from the kingdom's treasury whenever I wanted, just by using my name. He placed a hand on his chin, smiling to himself. And taking saintesses out on dates under the excuse of divine duties. That was quite enjoyable too. He paused, staring at the blue screen in front of him. If I end the quest like this, does that mean all those luxuries will come to an end? A grin slowly spread across his face as he began to laugh. Wait a minute. Wouldn't that be such a waste? Yuta clenched his teeth in anger. Evan laughed even louder. Since it would be a shame to end it like this, I'll just start over from the beginning. Suddenly, a system notification appeared. System notification: the successor has refused to complete the quest. Quest: successor's ritual proceeding to the third hidden route. All tower data, except for the successors, will be reset. Remaining time, 1 minute and 2 seconds. Yuta and Nova were both stunned. Excuse me? Yuta said, confused. What do you mean by that all of a sudden? After coming all this way, you're going to start over from the beginning? Why would you do something like that? Evan laughed casually. I feel a little bad for you guys, but I like my life in this tower too much to just end the quest like this. He shrugged. If possible, I want to enjoy this life forever. His tone turned colder. But that's impossible. If I don't clear the quest within the time limit, it ends with the Demon King's victory. He smirked. So the method I discovered was to intentionally trigger a bug in the quest and continuously reset the tower. He looked at them calmly. Soon, your data will disappear as well. Thanks for everything up until now. He laughed again. Thanks to you, I was able to reset it easily. Even after the tower resets. I won't forget you. Suddenly, a massive black cube was summoned above him by the system. It began to fall. Evan quickly jumped back, narrowly dodging it. Standing before him, the Demon King. Still alive. Covering his mouth with one hand, he waved the other slightly and spoke in a cold voice. I told you clearly, Evan James. I would never let things go your way. A system notification appeared again. System notification: the contents of the quest successor's ritual have been modified. It is no longer possible to reset the tower. The bug you have been abusing has been completely patched. A dark purple aura flowed from the Demon King's eyes, blood visible at the corner of his mouth. The Demon King Belzer raised his hand and sneered at Evan James. So, you patched the bug? With your own hands? Don't make me laugh. Even for you, that's impossible. Hearing this, Evan James clenched his teeth in anger, his eyes narrowing sharply. Belzer continued coldly, the only thing you can tamper with in this tower is this demon realm. A surge of dark purple energy gathered in his palm, swirling violently before expanding into a vast zone. The moment Evan was caught inside it, panic flashed across his face, a system notification echoed, system overdrive activated, movement restriction rules have been applied to the current zone, the targeted player cannot move for 10 minutes, Belzer stood before the immobilized Evan, effortlessly controlling the zone with one hand. You've given me far too much time, Evan. His voice grew colder with each word. Thanks to you constantly resetting the tower, I've learned more and more about its system and structure. Just as I expected, this tower is full of flaws. The basic system logic is a mess, riddled with contradictory code. He smirked. That's why you were able to exploit that precious bug of yours. Restarting from the beginning without completing the quest. Evan's eyes widened in shock, but he remained silent. Belzer's expression hardened. But now, you won't be able to do that anymore. A dark grin spread across his face, because I've taken care of every single bug in this tower. Belzer stepped forward, a massive surge of purple energy flowing around his feet. Let's end this now. He smirked and raised his hand. Above them, blocks of glowing purple code began to fall like rain. Our final game. Right here and now. A system notification echoed, generating a one-on-one combat space with the relevant player. The combat space is completely isolated from the stage, third-party intervention is forbidden. Flashback: at the top floor, when they first reached the top floor of the tower, countless monsters appeared before them. At that time, Belzer gathered a desperate, raging purple aura around himself. With a single, devastating strike, he slammed his power into the ground. The explosion of dark energy shattered the monsters into pieces instantly. Belzer turned and shouted, "Now's the time, Evan. If we destroy that artifact, all the monsters will disappear." Evan James smirked, gripping his sword as blue energy flowed around it. With one powerful strike, he destroyed the artifact. A system notification appeared, artifact, colony core has been destroyed, monster entities within the dungeon will be sequentially eliminated, one by one, the monsters began to vanish. Evan laughed. That's what I'm talking about. He turned to Belzer with a grin. This stage was easy too, huh? As expected, when you and I join forces, there's no stage we can't clear. Belzer smiled in agreement. Evan continued, by the way. Isn't it amazing? It's like this world is a perfect recreation of the virtual reality game we've always dreamed of. Maybe this world is a utopia made just for us. Belzer replied calmly, it's too early to let our guard down, Evan. We don't know what's coming in the next stage. Let's stay sharp and prepare. Evan laughed, yeah. But honestly, I'm not worried at all. As long as I have you, the game developer, no matter what awaits us, we're invincible. Belzer smiled faintly. Just as Evan said, he thought. We climbed the tower without failing even once. This world follows the logic of a game, everything has a strategy. Stats, skills, items, monster data. I already knew most of its rules. For me, conquering this tower wasn't that difficult. And so, they reached the very top. And finally met the entity who created this world, the truth at the top. Eshua stood before them. Evan, surprised, asked, excuse me. Is that really true? If we clear the special quest you give us, we can create a new world in this tower? Eshua smiled. That is correct. Evan turned to Belzer and laughed, that's insane. Belzer, there's no reason to refuse this. Right? This is a golden opportunity, a chance to create the world we've always dreamed of. Just imagining it is exciting. In the world you create, I'll be a player. Before he could finish, Belzer interrupted him. No, Evan. His expression turned serious, I'm going back to my original world. Evan froze in shock. What? Wait. Are you serious? He forced a nervous smile. Even if you go back to that miserable reality, there's nothing better than what we have here, right? Belzer shook his head. No matter how miserable reality is. It's still reality. No matter what kind of world we create here, it can never replace it. Evan's eyes widened. Belzer. Eshua watched them and smiled calmly. It seems the two of you have different desires. In that case, let's settle it this way. His voice turned colder. The tower's reward can only be granted to one person. Whether it is succession of the tower or a return to your original world. Only one of you can obtain it. He let out a quiet laugh, therefore. To claim what you desire, prove it with your own strength. His gaze sharpened. The tower's reward will be granted. Only to the one who clears the quest. Back into present time. A system notification echoed through the battlefield. The current space is completely cut off from the outside, access and interference by external entities are blocked. Outside the isolated space, Yuda and Asura stared at the barrier forming before them. Yuda's eyes widened in shock. What? What is going on here? Why did that demon king suddenly resurrect? What on earth is happening in there? Asura, however, remained silent, watching with curiosity. He slowly raised his hand, forming a crackling yellow lightning spell in his palm. Without hesitation, he fired it at the isolation space. The barrier trembled violently as dark energy surged across its surface. A system alert rang out, error, abnormal interference detected. Yuda and Kalina stared in disbelief, their eyes wide and mouths slightly open. Yuda shouted, what are you trying to do now? Ignoring him, Asura placed both hands against the barrier and began forcing it open with sheer strength. The space itself started to crack under the pressure. Another alert blared, error, system malfunction due to abnormal external shock, external interference exceeds allowed limits. Inside the isolation space, Evan, James and Belzer stood facing each other. Belzer raised his hand, gathering a dense, dark purple aura. System overdrive activated, Lorem Judgment, Reign Ipsum. With that, he unleashed a massive wave of purple energy toward Evan. Evan reacted instantly. With a smirk, he summoned the Otherworld Universal Warehouse in both hands. Raising it before him, he activated Mirror Gate, absorbing the incoming attack completely, then reflecting it back at Belzer. Belzer responded immediately, activating System Overdrive again and forming an absolute barrier around himself. The reflected wave crashed against it but failed to break through. Evan burst into laughter. This is incredible. You can manually rewrite the system's rules. And even create a space like this? Belzer said nothing, watching Evan with a serious expression. Evan's grin grew wider, almost unhinged. As expected. You were meant to inherit the tower's power. If you love this world so much, why don't you take it for yourself instead of me? Belzer replied calmly, no matter how many times you reset this tower, I will never inherit it. Evan laughed again. I already told you, Belzer, I have no interest in that kind of responsibility. The only thing I want is to enjoy this tower forever as a player. With that, he lunged forward, rushing toward Belzer with a powerful punch. Belzer didn't move. The interruption suddenly, cracks began to spread across the isolation space. Before either of them could react, boom. Asura broke through the barrier and appeared inside. Evan's eyes widened in shock. In an instant, Asura closed the distance and struck Evan with a blazing fist engulfed in flames. Belzer's eyes shot open in disbelief. What? Evan dropped to his knees, blood spilling from his mouth as he struggled to support himself with one hand. What is this? All of a sudden, Asura stood over him, lightning crackling around his body. I warned you, didn't I? A powerful aura surged from him as he looked down at Evan coldly. Since you tried to pull a fast one on me, you wouldn't complain even if I killed you. Right? Evan James stood trembling, raising his hand in fear. Wait a second. I know you're furious with me, but are you really sure about this? Then he let out a shaky laugh. If you kill me recklessly like this, you'll never be able to obtain the successor's power. A smirk spread across his face as he continued, if the quest ends with the Demon King's victory, Belzer will return to his original world as a reward, and no successor of the tower will ever emerge. Asura stared at him with narrowed eyes, his expression sharp and cold. Evan laughed louder, trying to mask his fear. If that happens, not only will the successor's power be lost, but all of you will vanish along with this tower. So, you need to kill that Demon King right now and claim the successor's power. Suddenly, Asura stepped forward and drove a powerful punch into Evan's stomach. The force lifted him off his feet and sent him flying across the space, crashing into the barrier created by the Demon King. The impact shattered the surrounding air with a deafening boom. Evan's eyes widened in shock as blood spilled from his mouth, a scream of pain tearing from his throat. Asura spoke coldly, his voice devoid of emotion. Quest? Reward? Why should I care about such nonsense? His gaze sharpened. That damned power inside your body. I'll just rip it out right here and now. Evan's expression twisted into pure terror. Sweat pouring down his face. What the hell are you talking about? Extracting an incomplete successor's power is impossible. Before he could finish, a yellow aura flared in Asura's eyes. He clenched his fist and struck again. King Asura style, dantian shattering origin annihilation. The devastating blow slammed Evan into the ground, cracking the surface beneath him as shockwaves rippled through the area, smoke rising all around. Evan couldn't withstand the impact. Blood poured from his mouth as his body trembled on the verge of collapse. A system notification echoed, dantian shattering origin annihilation activated. Streams of radiant energy burst from Evan's body as Asura began forcibly extracting the power within him. Another notification followed, the successor's power stored within the player's body is being forcibly extracted. Meanwhile, the Demon King Belzer watched in stunned disbelief, his eyes wide. Just who the hell is he? He thought. This man is insane. Not only is he breaking the tower's system with his bare fists, but he's also ripping the successor's power out of Evan's body. Without any restrictions. A chill ran through him. Is it possible that to him, this tower's system is nothing more than a child's game? Meanwhile, Asura smirked as he grasped the successor's power in his hand. A system notification suddenly rang out, error occurred. A fatal error has occurred in the system. Due to the fatal error, the quest is being forcibly terminated. Smoke engulfed the entire area. A scream echoed through the haze as Evan James coughed up blood. The successor's power had already been torn from his body. On the brink of death, he let out a weak laugh. I knew it. From the moment I first saw you. He muttered. But you're still so damn strong. It's almost laughable. I can't believe something this absurd is even possible. Asura stood silently, holding the extracted power in his hand, his gaze fixed on Evan. Lying on the ground, Evan could barely open his eyes. A blue system window flickered in front of him. Ah. So this is how it ends. He thought. Without anyone inheriting the power of the tower. It was all pointless. The screen displayed, quest, successor's ritual, failed. If I had known it would end like this. He thought bitterly, forget the successor. I should have just let you take the reward, Belzer. Belzer stood nearby, still frozen in shock, unable to believe what he was witnessing. Blood trickled from Evan's nose as he gave a faint smile. If I had. We wouldn't have had to go through this quest from the very beginning. Back then, in the Demon King Belzer's castle. Evan James spoke with disdain. This disgusting quest. One that only ends when one of us dies. This hellish trial of ours. After defeating the Demon King, Evan stood over him, exhausted, gripping his sword. This round ends in my victory, Belzer, he said. Now, I will inherit all the power of the tower. And manifest the world we once dreamed of. Belzer lay on the ground, blood spilling from his mouth. Looking up at him with a serious expression, he called out, Evan James. Evan gritted his teeth in anger and shouted, then why didn't you inherit the tower's power sooner? If you had accepted the quest from the beginning, neither of us would have had to die. Hearing this, Belzer lowered his head sadly, remaining silent for a moment. Then he spoke quietly, I've told you before. This world is nothing more than an illusion created by Eshua. That's why. Creating another illusion within her illusion is meaningless, worthless. He closed his eyes. So don't feel guilty. And just kill me already. Even if we turned back time, I would have made the same choice. The true winner of this quest is you, Evan James. Evan clenched his fist, his anger rising. Don't be ridiculous. Do you think I'll let the quest end like this? A blue system window opened before him. Even though I didn't want it to end this way. Evan said, his voice softening, this world created by the quest is just like the game I always dreamed of, Belzer. Belzer's eyes widened in shock. Evan laughed lightly. All those dungeons and gimmicks you created. As a player, they were so much fun to conquer. He looked at Belzer with a faint smile. So I'll continue. I'll live in this world with you, Belzer. Without clearing the quest. I'll stay in this perfect game forever. With a smirk, Evan activated the system, and recreated the quest once again. Back in the present, a system notification echoed, Quest, Successor's ritual has been terminated. No successor of the tower has emerged, all data of the tower will be deleted. Evan James remained seated on the ground, a faint aura flickering around him as it slowly began to fade. His body started to break apart, piece by piece, dissolving into fragments as the system erased his data. With a weak voice, Evan said, now that I'm actually dying like this, I suddenly feel so much regret. If possible, I wanted to enjoy more of the games you created. No matter how much of an illusion it was. I still liked this world. Asura looked at him with a cold expression. You still haven't come to your senses. You foolish brat. Evan looked at him in confusion. Asura narrowed his eyes, anger flickering within them. This foolish world, constructed by someone else. What's so good about it that you cling to it so desperately? Evan's eyes widened slightly. What? A stage built on someone else's rules, Asura continued, his voice sharp and unyielding. A reality defined by others. To cling to such a ghost. And repeat a finished game over and over again. That is the height of folly. He pressed his foot firmly against the ground. A real man should stand on his own 2 feet and live in the real world. With cold eyes, he added, a life inside a comfortable illusion can never become real. Evan blinked in surprise. The real world. I should live in. Then he suddenly smiled. You're a funny guy, mister. He slowly raised his head as a purple aura consumed him, his body continuing to disintegrate under the system's deletion. What's the point of telling me that now? He said softly. Does it even matter anymore? He let out a quiet laugh. Well, I had a good run in my own way. I went on many exciting adventures. And met plenty of beautiful women. He chuckled faintly. Considering all that, I can say it was a pretty decent life, right? His body continued to scatter into fragments. If there's a next time, maybe I'll try living in the real world. A blue system window appeared one last time. The player's data has been completely deleted. The maintenance conditions for the battle zone are no longer met. In the next moment, Evan James vanished completely, his existence erased. Asura stood silently, still holding the successor's power in his hand, facing Yuda. Another notification followed. The player's one-on-one battle zone is being deactivated. Yuda and Kalina stared in shock. You're safe? Kalina asked. Yuda, still stunned, spoke again. What on earth happened in there? What happened to Evan? And the Demon King? The Demon King, Belzer, replied solemnly. Evan James lost the successor's power. and has vanished from this world forever. Yuda's eyes widened in disbelief. You will never see Evan again in this world, Belzer continued. Yuda shook slightly. Evan lost the successor's power and vanished. Then that means you. Yes, Belzer answered. That man stripped Evan of his power, and as a result, the quest ended in my victory. He paused before continuing, his voice heavy. Soon, I will return to my original world. When that happens, this tower will lose the power of its system. And all remaining data within it will be erased. He looked at them carefully. I don't know where you all came from, or why you sought the successor's power. But one thing is clear. His eyes narrowed, a trace of anger surfacing. Your true goal is the Goddess Eshua, the one who created this world. After a brief silence, he spoke firmly, in that case, I will tell you her whereabouts. Yuda was shocked to hear that and asked in disbelief, what? How did you know that we were looking for Eshua? Demon King Belzer lowered his head sadly and pointed toward Asura. That man's power. There's no doubt about it. It's the kind of power that could destroy the world Eshua created. He clenched his fist in anger. I wanted to destroy this world too. Just like him. Eshua is the one who imprisoned me and Evan James in this fake world. And this system. She created all of it. But unfortunately, I lacked the power to destroy it. The most I could do was modify the system she created. Yuda's eyes widened as he listened carefully to Belzer's words. While uncovering the secrets of this world and the tower system, Belzer continued seriously, I learned one thing, this world wasn't actually created by Eshua. It existed from the very beginning. Yuda asked in surprise, this world wasn't created by Eshua? That's right, Belzer replied. We were simply under the wrong impression. She didn't create this world, she merely laid a framework over it, known as the system. To maintain stability, she trapped us within a massive structure called the tower. Rather than controlling the entire world through the system, it was far more efficient for her to divide it into smaller sections, these towers, and manage them separately. Nova stood there in shock, and Yuda felt the same realization sink in. I see. Yuda thought. Now that I think about it, why didn't I realize this sooner? Beyond the tower Eshua created, there's a much wider world out there. Just as I thought. Eshua intended to rule this world through the system from the very beginning. Demon King Belzer continued, according to my long years of research into the system's power, Eshua is most likely at the center of this world, managing all the towers she created. At the heart of the very first tower lies the source of the entire system, the Administrator's Tower. Kalina and Yuda exchanged surprised looks. The Administrator's Tower? Yuda asked in shock. Demon King Belzer continued, I will soon return to my original world. But you must reach the Administrator's Tower and find Eshua. And avenge Evan in my stead. Asura, holding the successor's power in his hand, looked at Demon King Belzer and replied, I was planning to do that anyway, even if you hadn't asked. It's a pity what happened to you and your friend, but the root of all this tragedy is that damned woman who summoned you into this world. He glanced at the power in his hand and added. So I'll definitely storm the tower where she is. And destroy her along with this cursed world. Suddenly, a portal opened in front of Asura. As he stepped toward it, he said, well then, since my business here is finished, I'll be taking my leave. At that moment, the system issued a notification, the quest had ended, and a portal had been generated. Use the portal to leave the tower. Yuda quickly rushed forward toward the portal and shouted, wait a minute. Take us with you, Mr. Demon King Belzer smiled and said, right. If it's you, then it might actually be possible. As soon as he finished speaking, his castle began to collapse around him. A blue system window appeared before his eyes. The return ritual has been completed. All tower data, except for the returner, has been erased. Do you truly wish to return now? Yes/no, Demon King Belzer quietly read the message displayed on the screen. Then, with a calm smile, he muttered, seriously. Why do you always ask this kind of question only after everything is already over? Slowly, he raised his hand toward the blue window. There's absolutely no reason for me to remain in this world any longer. He selected yes. The system responded immediately, you have selected return. Great work, player Nim. Suddenly, his original form began to return. Another notification appeared. Your data will now be transferred to your original world. Belzer quietly whispered, so. I'm really going back just like this. He slowly narrowed his eyes. If possible. I wanted to return to our original world together with you. If all of us had made the same choice. If we had never been summoned to this tower in the first place. Then we wouldn't have had to fight like this, right? As his body gradually began to disappear and transfer back to his original world, a faint smile appeared on his face. I miss those days when we used to play games together. Evan. The days when we had no worries or burdens. When we simply enjoyed gaming together. With no successor left behind, the tower itself finally began to crumble and fall apart. Yuta and Nova watched in shock as the tower slowly crumbled and fell apart before their eyes. In the end. This tower is being destroyed as well, Yuta said quietly. It seems that without a successor, the tower cannot sustain its power. And naturally ceases to exist. After a brief silence, he suddenly asked, by the way, the administrator's tower the Demon King mentioned. Where in the world is it? He said it was located at the center of this world, but no one even knows where that center is. Kalina crossed her arms and replied calmly, first, we need to understand the geography of this world. Now that we've obtained the power of a successor as well, we should take our time and explore the world beyond the tower for a while. Meanwhile, Asura sat silently nearby, holding the successor's power in his hand as he attempted to absorb it. The moment he began absorbing the power, a massive pressure of energy exploded outward. Yuta immediately felt the overwhelming force and quickly raised his arm to shield his eyes. Has it started again? He thought nervously. He gritted his teeth as energy flowed through his eyes, as expected. Just like last time. Unknown memories are flooding into my mind. Inside his memories, he saw a successor's power resting at the edge of a collapsing cliff. Massive cracks spread across the ground as pieces of the cliff broke apart. A figure stood before the successor's power while a dark purple aura swirled around it. The mysterious figure slowly stepped forward and touched the successor's power. The moment their hand made contact, countless blue system windows appeared in the air. Each screen contained the data of every tower. And every successor connected to them. The figure quietly observed all the information. It was Eshua. A faint smirk appeared on her face as she took control of the entire system and every tower connected to it. The scene shifted back to the present. Asura had already finished consuming the successor's power. Slowly rising to his feet, he looked ahead seriously, just as I thought. With this power, Eshua's seal is slowly beginning to break. He clenched his fist as he felt the energy flowing through his body. However, it is still vastly insufficient to restore my dantian. Nova and Yuta both looked shocked. Still. Vastly insufficient? Yuta asked nervously. Yes, Asura replied coldly. Before we head to the tower where that damned woman is, I must break this seal as quickly as possible. Otherwise, I'll fall victim to that woman's wicked arts once again. And my dantian will be sealed another time. He paused briefly before continuing, but we cannot keep traveling together forever while collecting these powers one by one. Yuta looked confused as Asura pointed toward them. From now on, each of you will take charge of one tower and obtain the successor's power yourselves. Hearing that, Yuta panicked immediately and waved his hands in confusion. Excuse me? How are we supposed to obtain a successor's power without you, mister? Maybe Kalina could do it. But how is someone like me, with zero abilities, supposed to clear a tower? Before he could continue, Asura suddenly smacked him on the head. Pathetic fool. Aff. Yuta cried out in pain while holding his head. Asura looked down at him coldly. Have you already lost the will to grow stronger? Naturally, all of you are still far too weak to destroy a tower. You lack both the basic stamina and the physical condition required to survive. Asura clenched his fist with determination and said, however, if you undergo my special training, all of you will completely transform. He slowly stood up and smirked confidently. Look forward to it. I will make you stronger than anyone else. A few hours later, deep within the quiet forest, Yuta's training finally began. Holding his sword tightly with determination, Yuta rushed toward Asura. However, the moment he tried to attack, Asura casually struck him away with a single blow. Yuta's sword slipped from his hand as he was sent flying through the air. He crashed violently into a nearby rock, shattering it from the impact. Gah! Blood spread from the corner of Yuta's mouth as he endured the critical hit. With anger in his eyes, he glared at Asura and shouted, "Come on, mister. Can't you go a little easier on me?" He gritted his teeth, narrowed his eyes, and held his chest in pain. Every time I spar with you, it feels like my entire body is going to break apart. Then, with a frustrated expression, he continued, besides, what's the point if every match ends in 1 second? I haven't even been able to properly swing my sword yet. Asura looked at him calmly and replied, you fool. Have you learned nothing after getting beaten up like that? He slowly stepped forward. The important thing in this sparring is not whether you can swing that trivial sword or not. Still sitting on the ground, Yuda looked at him in confusion. Asura continued, it's about figuring out how to block my fist. And discovering what methods you could possibly use to win a sparring match against me. And then, honing every one of those methods and possibilities. Without that level of resolve and desperate effort, you'll continue being sent flying by my fist every single time. Yuda slowly spoke up. Does that mean I should approach every sparring session prepared to die? He narrowed his eyes thoughtfully. Using any means and methods necessary. With the resolve to cut you down with my sword? Asura smirked slightly, that's right, brat. Yuda picked up his sword once again and stood to his feet. All right. Just don't go back on your words later, okay? Because from now on, I'm really going to fight using every dirty trick I can think of. The moment he finished speaking, Yuda rushed forward at full speed. At the same time, he thought to himself, in all our sparring sessions until now, Mr. has never attacked first. Probably because he was going easy on me since I'm weak. But every single time, right before I swing my sword, his fist always comes flying toward me. As Yuda tried to swing his sword, he thought to himself, if that's the case. The moment Asura launched his fist toward him, Yuda clearly saw the attack with intense focus and easily dodged it. I'll just feign an attack, evade his fist, and create an opening. He thought confidently. With a shout, Yuda aimed his sword forward. Now's my chance. With this timing, even Mr. won't be able to block it. But before he could finish his attack, Asura's fist slammed directly into his face. Yuda's eyes widened in shock. Nearby, Nova looked startled and shouted worriedly, Yuda. Asura simply smirked, not a chance. Getting cocky with such a clumsy trick. He then looked down at Yuda calmly. However, that wasn't too bad, brat. Next time, try preparing a slightly more convincing attack. Meanwhile, Yuda lay on the ground, nearly unconscious, with one side of his cheek badly swollen. Later that night, Yuda and Kalina sat near the campfire. Yuda sat shirtless while Kalina carefully treated his wounds, applying medicinal liquid to the bruises on his face and body. I'm glad, Yuda. You weren't seriously hurt, Kalina said gently. She smiled softly. These injuries aren't too serious, so you'll be able to return to your special training tomorrow, right? Yuda looked at her silently without replying. Kalina continued calmly, get some proper rest tonight. As long as you continue training hard tomorrow, you'll be fine. Yuda forced out a weak laugh and hid the fear in his eyes. What a relief. Tomorrow's going to be hell again. He placed a hand on his head and sighed. By the way, is there really nothing I can do, Kalina? Swordsmanship, firearms, even healing arts. If only I were like you. If I had even one thing I was actually good at, I wouldn't be this weak. He lowered his eyes sadly. What do I have to do to become like you or Mr. and gain strength of my own? I need to become powerful enough to destroy a tower by myself, without relying on the stats created by Eshua. Kalina listened quietly before smiling faintly. At first, I couldn't properly handle even a single longsword, Yuda. And it wasn't just the longsword. She wrapped her arms around her knees and stared into the fire calmly. I had absolutely no talent for any weapon, so I was never acknowledged as a warrior. In the end, I was exiled from my village. Yuda looked at her in shock. You were exiled from your village? Kalina looked up at the night sky and smiled bitterly, yeah. I don't know what the world you came from was like. But the world I lived in valued only inborn talent. Because of that, most people chose the weapon best suited for them before they even came of age. And hunted monsters using only that specific weapon. She glanced toward Yuda. Using multiple weapons like I do now was something the warriors of my village wouldn't have even dared to imagine. Then she smiled gently at him, even after being kicked out of the village. I never gave up, Yuda. Yuda looked at Kalina with determination in his eyes as she continued speaking. In order to be recognized as a warrior of my village no matter what, I trained relentlessly with every single weapon I could find. And as a result, I finally earned the recognition of the villagers as the one who could freely wield all weapons. The legendary weapon master. Yuda looked at her in surprise, I see. Then he smiled faintly and thought to himself, you really are amazing, Kalina. To master all those weapons through nothing but sheer effort alone. Kalina continued gently, so even if you feel lost right now, don't worry. She smiled warmly. Every path where you continue striving without giving up is bound to leave its mark someday. The next morning, Asura's special training resumed once again. Yuta stood before Asura while tightly gripping his sword. The moment the training began, he launched another attack. 3 times a day. Sometimes even 5 times, Yuta sparred one-on-one against Asura. Every match ended the same way. He would be sent flying by a punch and eventually pass out from the overwhelming force. But despite that, it wasn't as though he made no progress at all. Little by little. Slowly but surely. Yuta gradually learned how to parry Asura's attacks, and eventually, he even learned how to control the Holy Sword's magic without relying on stats. Some time later, Yuta desperately blocked one of Asura's attacks with his sword. Both of them remained standing. Asura's fist was still pressed against the blade as a powerful shockwave spread around them. Asura smirked. "You've grown quite a bit, brat. But is that really all you've got?" He smiled calmly. "With attacks this trivial, you won't draw even a single drop of my blood." Meanwhile, Yuta tightly gripped his sword while breathing heavily from exhaustion. "Now I can somewhat block Mr.'s fists," he thought. "But the real problem is, how do I actually damage him? I've never properly used this technique before. But I guess this is my only option." He narrowed his eyes with focus. "I'll concentrate all the magic dwelling within the Holy Sword into a single point." The moment he finished thinking that, Yuta rushed forward at full speed. Activating the Holy Sword of Asterion, he swung his blade directly toward Asura. At the same time, Asura's fist collided head-on with the sword. Boom! A massive impact exploded outward. A brilliant holy flash erupted across the battlefield as a violent wave of energy swept through the area. The ground shattered beneath them. And the surrounding forest was devastated by the force of the collision. After the impact settled, Asura still stood firmly in place while steam flowed around his body. Then, slowly, he smirked. How amusing. He looked down at his hand. A small stream of blood trickled from it. A wide grin spread across his face. "To think you actually made me bleed." He then turned toward Yuta and laughed proudly. "Truly excellent, brat. With this level of power, you'll be more than capable of shattering those damn towers that woman created. As for today, your training is officially complete." Yuta slowly lifted his head and looked toward Asura. His body trembled from exhaustion while steam continued rising from him after the earlier attack. After that, Kalina's training began. It was already the 3rd day of training. Kalina stood silently as the wind gathered around her body. Closing her eyes, she focused deeply while gripping her sword tightly. Suddenly, she opened her eyes. Her gaze was completely focused and filled with determination. With a swift motion, she swung her sword. A sharp wave of purple energy burst forward and sliced through the surrounding trees in an instant. The trees were cut into countless small pieces that scattered through the air before crashing onto the ground. Kalina slowly lowered her sword and returned it to its sheath. "It's still not enough," she muttered quietly. "If I want to become as strong as that man, then I'll have to surpass my own limits." At that moment, Asura walked forward. "That's quite decent swordsmanship," he said casually. With a smile, he rested a wooden branch on his shoulder. "To achieve this much with a single swing of your sword, you're certainly better than that brat." Kalina narrowed her eyes slightly while Asura lowered the wooden branch from his shoulder. However, he continued calmly, "Merely cutting down a few trees isn't enough for me to say you've reached the level of a true expert." Suddenly, a powerful yellow aura began flowing around Asura's body and arm. The wooden branch in his hand trembled with energy. With a smirk, he said, "If you were a true expert." In the next instant, Asura swung the wooden branch. Boom! With a single strike, the massive boulder standing before him shattered into countless tiny fragments. Dust and debris exploded outward as the rock completely crumbled apart. Asura then turned toward Kalina while the yellow aura still flowed around his arm. Then even with a single wooden branch, you should be able to shatter a massive boulder. Kalina looked at him seriously and spoke without hesitation. "Just like with Yuta. Please spar with me. In order to surpass my own limits, I need an opponent who is far stronger than I am." Asura smirked. "How foolish. What you need right now isn't a sparring match with me. You must stop relying on weapons and techniques alone. Instead, train your own inherent strength." He casually tossed the wooden branch toward Kalina. "Try breaking a boulder with this branch." "Just like I did." Kalina looked down at the branch in surprise. Asura crossed his arms and smiled confidently. "We'll talk about sparring. When you managed to do that." It was already the 4th day of training. Kalina continued trying to shatter the massive boulder with the wooden branch, but every attempt ended the same way. Crack! The branch broke apart the moment it struck the rock. With another powerful swing, the wooden branch shattered once again and flew through the air before landing behind Kalina. She stood there breathing heavily, her body filled with exhaustion and frustration. Even so, she picked up another branch without hesitation and continued training. Nearby, Yuda and Nova watched her silently. Kalina really devotes herself completely to training without taking a break, Yuda said worriedly. It's good that she's working hard. But what if she suddenly collapses from overworking herself like that? Even if it's special training, she still needs to rest sometimes. Nova quietly replied, unlike you and Mr. Kalina is the only one who still retains her stat system. Although she's barely relying on its power right now. As long as the stat system remains, it will be difficult for her to surpass the limits of her fixed stats. Yuda looked at her curiously, so the power of the system is actually suppressing Kalina's growth? Sitting on the ground with his arms resting on his knees, he turned toward Nova. In that case, if Mr. destroyed Kalina's status window as well, wouldn't that solve the problem? He should be able to break her status window the same way he broke mine. Nova placed a hand on her chin and thought quietly for a moment. Well, it would be great if that were possible. But if her status window were destroyed recklessly, she could lose her life along with it. Because the status window is directly linked to a player's life force. If the status window disappears, their life force also drops to 0. Yuda's eyes widened in shock. If the status window is destroyed, you mean she could actually die? Then he quickly waved his hand in confusion. But Nova, if that were true, then when our status windows broke, shouldn't we have disappeared immediately like Lee Chanwoo did? Nova lowered her eyes slightly. To be honest, I'm not completely sure about that either. But the important thing is this. Destroying the status window is not the method Kalina needs in order to surpass her limits. She glanced toward Kalina. And Mr. is probably already aware of that. The way for Kalina to overcome her own limits is something she must discover for herself. By the 5th day of training, Kalina still had not managed to shatter the boulder. Once again, she swung the wooden branch while purple aura flowed around it. Again. And again. And again. But nothing changed. One wooden branch after another broke apart. Exhausted, Kalina stared at the boulder while breathing heavily. How in the world? Am I supposed to break a boulder with a branch? I've swung it hundreds. No, thousands of times. But I can't even leave a single scratch on it. She narrowed her eyes thoughtfully. Just how much strength does that man actually possess? Suddenly, something clicked in her mind. Wait. Strength. Was it really just raw physical strength that allowed him to shatter that massive boulder? If he had destroyed it through strength alone, then the branch he used should have broken too. However, the branch he used, it was as though it had become steel itself. It didn't break. Or even bend. Kalina slowly looked down at another wooden branch in her hand. I don't know exactly how he did it. But it's clear now. He used his own specialized energy to harden the branch itself. Her eyes sharpened with realization. From the very beginning, this training was never simply about becoming physically stronger. In order to break that massive boulder, she suddenly rushed forward while gathering all of her purple aura into the branch. This branch itself must become as hard as steel. On the other side, Asura walked forward while holding a wooden branch in his hand. Suddenly, his footsteps came to a halt as he sensed something. He turned his gaze toward Kalina and smiled faintly. At last. It seems you've attained enlightenment. Kalina stood there calmly. Beside her lay the shattered remains of the massive boulder she had destroyed with nothing but a wooden branch. She slowly turned her head and looked toward Asura. With this level of skill, Asura continued, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say you've now reached the level of an expert. Then he laughed lightly. So, what will you do now? If it is truly your wish, we can conclude your training with a sparring match against me. Kalina remained silent while still holding the wooden branch in her hand. Then suddenly, she rushed toward Asura at incredible speed and swung the branch directly at him. Asura calmly raised his own wooden branch to block the attack. But before he could react properly, Kalina had already changed the trajectory of her strike and landed a direct blow from behind. Asura's eyes widened slightly in surprise. He looked down at the wooden branch in his hand. A deep crack had formed across it. In the next instant, crack. The branch shattered into pieces. Kalina lowered her weapon and spoke calmly, a sparring match is no longer necessary. My limits. I have already surpassed them on my own. A powerful purple aura flowed around her as she activated her new technique, new Kalina style, Vajra weaponization. Nova raised her hand and used her magic power to scan the surrounding area. She slowly closed her eyes and carefully observed the flow of energy before speaking. There are only 2 towers in this area where the successor's power can be sensed. One is not far from here, while the other is a bit farther away. Yuta placed his hand on his chin and thought for a moment before speaking. So there are only 2 towers nearby with successor powers. He then looked at Asura and asked, "So, what should we do now, mister? Since you're already strong enough, Kalina and I should form a team before he could finish speaking, Asura interrupted him. "No. You're coming with me, kid. I need your assistance so I can destroy that damn tower." Yuta was surprised to hear that. "Wait. Why are you suddenly acting out of character? How could I possibly be of any help to you?" Asura calmly explained, "That woman has already reached a level where she can destroy a tower on her own without your help. You've also become much stronger compared to before. However, if you don't accompany me, you'll surely lose your life." He continued, "Consider this your final training. Stay by my side and learn well." Yuta nervously scratched his head and replied, "Since you put it that way, I guess I don't really have anything to say against it." He gave an awkward laugh before turning toward Kalina. "Are you okay with this, Kalina? You don't have to go with us." Kalina smiled calmly and replied, "Yeah, I don't mind. It's a good chance to test the results of my training, so I actually think this is a great opportunity." She then looked at Yuta and added, "Don't worry about me. Just assist Mr. properly." With a confident smile, she continued, "No matter what kind of successor is waiting inside that tower, I'll smash them all to pieces." Yuta lowered his eyes sadly and replied, "All right then. It's time for us to part ways here." He took a deep breath before continuing, "Once we obtain the successor power, let's meet back at this location. No matter what happens, you must come back alive." Meanwhile, Kalina arrived in front of the tower while holding her sword tightly in her hand. She silently observed the massive structure standing before her. As she stared at the tower, memories of her training with Asura resurfaced in her mind. After a long period of training, Asura had once said to her, "You've finally achieved enlightenment and mastered the energy circulation method on your own." Kalina had looked surprised after hearing that. Energy circulation. Asura clenched his fist as powerful energy flowed around it. Smiling proudly, he explained, "Yes. The energy circulation method is a chi technique where you take the internal energy accumulated within your dantian and allow it to flow freely through your meridians." He then looked directly at Kalina and continued, "Your desire to strengthen your weapon naturally caused the internal energy flowing through your meridians to transfer into your sword." Kalina nodded slightly. "I see." Asura continued, "There is already a large amount of internal energy flowing within your dantian and throughout your body. If you learn to control that energy as freely as I do, you will be able to reach the realm of a first-rate warrior." Kalina looked confused after hearing those words. Asura laughed before saying, "That's why you must continue devoting yourself to your training." Back in the present, Kalina tightened her grip on her sword. "To defeat the woman who created these towers and return to my original world, I also need to become as strong as him." Using the energy circulation method, she released her internal energy around her body. "I will defeat the successor on my own and reach the first-rate realm he spoke of." At that moment, a mechanical voice echoed inside her mind. "Player confirmed. Initiating transfer to tower number 296. The scene shifted to the place where Yuta, Asura, and Nova were heading toward the other tower. As they traveled, Yuta casually ate an apple. With a cheerful smile, he said, "This fruit is delicious. No matter how many times I eat it, it still tastes like honey." He laughed while walking behind Asura, "Mister, you should try some too. It doesn't even compare to any fruit we've eaten before." Asura glanced at him coldly and replied, "Cut it out. I do not partake in unnecessary meals." Yuta's expression immediately changed as he continued eating. "Really? But it's so good though." Then he quietly thought to himself, "So mean." Looking around at the strange world surrounding them, Yuta spoke again. "Anyway, this is truly amazing. Just like that demon king said, the world outside the towers seems to be almost completely unaffected by the system." He continued, "Unlike the virtual worlds created inside the towers, out here we can fully feel hunger and exhaustion." Asura also looked around before replying, "That's right." It seems what he said was true. Yuta crossed his arms thoughtfully. If this really is a world that originally existed, just as the demon king claimed, then where did all the people who once lived here go? He lowered his voice slightly. Even if Eshua is trash, I didn't think she would simply wipe out all those people. Nova remained silent for a moment after hearing that. Then she quietly said, perhaps. Eshua turned those people into players as well. Yuda's eyes widened in shock. Nova continued, I don't know exactly what Eshua wants, but I suddenly got a strange feeling. She placed her hand on her chin and continued thinking aloud. To maintain these countless towers, Eshua may be using those so-called players. Yuda looked surprised. Yeah. Now that you mention it, it really does feel that way. His expression darkened as memories resurfaced in his mind. When I first met Goddess Eshua, I heard something similar. All players, including myself, are nothing more than components needed to sustain this world. Nothing more, nothing less. Yuda quietly glanced at Nova. I've felt this for a long time, but fragments of Eshua's memories exist inside Nova's mind. I don't know why Eshua's memories are within Nova, but one thing is certain. Nova is also part of the system created by Eshua, was the reason I survived despite my broken stat window. Because she was with me? Suddenly, Asura stopped walking. His gaze fixed forward as he asked, is it here, kid? Is this where the successor's power is located? Standing before them was a massive tower reaching high into the sky. Nova stared at the tower before nodding. Yep. This is the place. The successor's power is definitely here. A moment later, her expression suddenly changed. I don't know exactly what kind of successor is inside, but I can sense an aura far stronger than any of the ones we encountered before. Asura smirked fearlessly. Even so. They are all nothing more than illusions created by that woman, kid. With a smirk on his face, Asura pulled back his fist as powerful energy began flowing around it. There is nothing. The energy around his fist intensified violently before he threw a devastating punch toward the tower. That can stop me. The moment his fist struck the tower, a massive purple hole suddenly appeared in front of it. At the same time, mechanical notifications echoed loudly. Error. Error. A critical error has occurred. The purple hole rapidly expanded, releasing a powerful force that began pulling everything nearby into it. Surrounded by swirling purple energy, Asura, Yuda, and Nova were dragged into the portal. Moments later, they crashed into a strange unfamiliar place. In front of them, a large crowd of martial artists surrounded a lone woman. Cut down that wicked woman of the unorthodox faction. Make her pay with her life for the sin of defiling the laws of the Jianhu. One bearded man stepped forward and pointed his finger toward the woman. I, Riding Star of the Namgung clan, hereby execute this evil woman in the name of the orthodox faction. At that moment, another system notification appeared before them. You have entered the first floor of the Tower of Heavenly Martial Arts. As Nova, Yuda, and Asura appeared inside the tower, Yuda stared at the blue system window in confusion. What's wrong with this tower? A quest was assigned immediately after entering? And for a quest to appear for me. Even though my system is already broken. I've got a bad feeling about this from the very beginning. Suddenly, someone shouted from behind him, who the hell are you people? A swordsman pointed his blade toward Yuda. What sect do you scoundrels belong to, daring to interfere in our clan's duel to the death? Yuda looked confused. Huh? Duel to the death? What are you even talking about? The swordsman glared at him furiously. Stop playing dumb, you scoundrel. You dare hide that wicked woman behind your backs and still act shamelessly? Yuda quickly turned around in shock and noticed the injured woman standing behind them. The swordsman continued angrily, that woman infiltrated our clan's secret manual repository and attempted to steal a demonic martial arts manual that has remained sealed for over 100 years. Another man stepped forward with rage burning in his eyes. According to the laws of the Jianhu, the Namgung clan shall punish her through the sword. He raised his blade as blue energy gathered around it. Our clan's duel to the death is fundamentally different from the simple sparring matches of other sects, scoundrels. His killing intent intensified. If you interfere. The blue aura around his sword flared violently. I will execute all of you alongside that wicked woman. Yuda and Nova were both surprised by the sudden situation unfolding before them. Yuda frowned nervously and thought, huh? What's going on all of a sudden? Intervene in the duel to the death and restore justice in the Jianhu? Shouldn't I at least know the situation before trying to restore anything? He narrowed his eyes and continued thinking, I don't know what's happening, but it seems this tower gives every player who enters a specific quest. Otherwise, there's no way such a strange quest would suddenly be given to me and Mr. For now, we should first stop this duel to the death. If we don't clear the quest, we won't be able to advance to the next floor. Suddenly, Asura stepped forward and coldly said, "You are truly arrogant, young rising star." He narrowed his eyes in anger and continued, "To dare call me a scoundrel. Do you really have a death wish?" Hearing those words, Namgung Jinhui gritted his teeth angrily in disbelief. "What?" Meanwhile, Yuta quickly turned toward Asura and shouted, "No, mister. What are we going to do if you make things even worse?" However, Asura ignored him completely. With a furious smirk on his face, he looked at the swordsman and said, "I don't care about your duel to the death. I just want to destroy this damn tower quickly and obtain the successor's power. So I'll ask you directly." Namgung Jinhui raised his sword toward Asura in confusion. Asura clenched his fist, causing pressure to spread through the surrounding air, before asking, "Are you the successor of this damn tower?" The nearby members of the Namgung clan heard those words and began muttering among themselves, "Successor of the tower? What the hell are those guys talking about? They sound completely insane. And their clothes are strange too." Namgung Jinhui suddenly laughed while taking a deep breath. Smirking mockingly, he said, "I thought you were just street scoundrels, but you're actually madmen who've lost your minds. Or perhaps you locked yourselves inside an inn in broad daylight and drank too much cheap rice wine." Hearing those words, Yuta felt both embarrassed and shocked. Namgung Jinhui smirked again and coldly said, "This is no place for drunken fools to wander into carelessly. Leave while I'm still being nice." In an instant, Asura rushed forward with his fist raised. Namgung Jinhui's eyes widened in shock as Asura suddenly attacked him. Barely managing to block the punch with his sword, he was pushed backward by the overwhelming force. Asura glared at him and said, "You don't listen to words. If you don't tell me where the successor's power is." Flames began burning fiercely around his fist as killing intent filled the air. "Then I'll kill everyone here." Namgung Jinhui looked surprised as he was pushed back by Asura's attack. The members of the Namgung clan were equally shocked and began muttering among themselves, "What? A swordsman of the Namgung clan was pushed back by sheer force? That's impossible. Lord Namgung Jinhui must have let his guard down." Meanwhile, Jinhui froze for a brief moment in shock. Just who is this guy? He thought. I couldn't sense any presence or killing intent from him at all. Normally, hiding one's presence so perfectly is only possible for martial artists who have reached the peak realm. I don't know which sect this man belongs to. But he is clearly no ordinary fighter. Even so, Jinhui pointed his sword toward Asura and laughed confidently. "Your strength is quite impressive, mysterious ruffian. To think you could actually push me, Namgung Jinhui, back with pure force alone." A powerful aura began flowing around his body, causing the air itself to tremble. One of his eyes glowed sharply as he smirked and continued, "But do you truly believe you can defeat me without using any martial arts at all?" His sword became enveloped in blue energy as his aura surged into the blade. "Consider it an honor to witness the swordsmanship of the Namgung clan, you street scoundrel." Jinhui lowered his stance into an attacking position, determination burning in his eyes. The sword of the Namgung clan is the greatest sword beneath the heavens. In the next instant, he activated his technique, Blue Sky Righteous Sword Art. Jinhui rushed forward at incredible speed. Asura, however, remained standing calmly in place without moving an inch. Leaping into the air, Jinhui swung his sword down fiercely. Second form, One Pure Heart. The blade descended with overwhelming force. But before the attack could land, Asura casually threw a punch. Without the slightest effort, his fist struck Jinhui directly in the face. Boom! A terrifying shockwave erupted through the area as Jinhui was blasted backward. His body rolled violently across the ground before crashing into a wall with tremendous force. Dust exploded into the air, covering the battlefield. Everyone present stared with wide eyes in absolute shock. Lord Namgung Jinhui. What the hell just happened? For a moment, the entire area fell silent. The members of the Namgung clan could only stare in disbelief. Our clan's rising star. Lost to some random ruffian like that? Meanwhile, Yuta was left completely shocked. I'm in huge trouble. He thought nervously. Instead of correcting the morals of the Jianghu, we ended up creating an even bigger mess. Fear appeared clearly on his face as he continued thinking, before the situation gets any worse. I have to stop Mister from going wild. Quickly raising his hand toward Asura, Yuta shouted anxiously, wait a second, Mister. If you keep rampaging like this, we'll never be able to clear the quest. So please stop destroying everything in sight and let's follow the instructions written in the status window first. Suddenly, a notification echoed through the air, quest failed. You have failed to correct the morals of the Jianghu. Returning to the quest starting point, Seeing the message, Yuda's eyes widened in disbelief. What is this now? Returning to the quest starting point? Don't tell me this quest will keep looping until we clear it. Another notification appeared immediately afterward. You have entered the first floor of the Tower of Heavenly Martial Arts. The quest for entering the Jianghu will begin. In the next moment, the world around them distorted. Yuda, Nova, and Asura suddenly found themselves back on the first floor exactly as before. Another blue system window appeared in front of them. Quest: intervene in the duel to the death and correct the morals of the Jianghu. The quest had restarted from the very beginning. Asura frowned and asked irritably, what the hell just happened? Why is that arrogant bastard standing perfectly fine in front of me again? Yuda placed a hand on his chin and thought carefully for a moment before speaking. It seems we really have to clear the quests in this tower if we want to move on to the next floor. If we ignore the direction the quest guides us toward, then time instantly rewinds back to the beginning. Asura replied, by quest, you mean those commands written in these ridiculous blue windows? Yuda laughed loudly and replied yes, it's a little annoying. A dangerous grin appeared on his face as he thought, but now things are finally getting interesting. Fine then, Yuda said. Why don't we start by correcting these so-called morals like the quest says? In order to obtain the successor's power, we absolutely have to clear these quests. At that moment, Namgong Jinhui suddenly stepped forward. Who the hell are you people? He raised his sword and shouted angrily, which sex scoundrels are you to dare interfere in our clan's duel to the death? Yuda narrowed his eyes seriously. Even though we had to restart the quest because of there's one important thing I learned, he thought. In the process of intervening in this duel to the death, we absolutely must not use violence. Yuda quickly stepped forward and spoke calmly. We came all the way here to clear up the misunderstanding surrounding this duel to the death. I understand that you are angry, Lord Namgong Jinhui, but this woman probably has her own reasons as well. So how about hearing her side of the story first? Namgong Jinhui scoffed coldly. A misunderstanding? What misunderstanding could there possibly be? That wicked woman stole a demonic martial arts manual. He pointed his sword toward the woman and continued. That woman is a remnant of the sinister Black Moon sect and a sinner who trespassed into our clan's secret archive to steal a demonic manual. No matter what her reasons are, she cannot be forgiven. Blue aura began flowing around his sword as he glared at them sharply, and if you interfere. His killing intent intensified. Then I will treat you as sinners as well. Yuda nervously waved his hands. No, but still, shouldn't you at least hear her explanation first? Suddenly, Asura interrupted him. Just how are we supposed to correct morals? He cracked his knuckles impatiently. Is there even a way to stop this duel to the death without using violence at all? Before anyone could react, Asura suddenly leaped forward, boom. His fist exploded with aura as he punched Namgong Jinhui once again, sending him flying high into the air. Seeing this, Yuda's face turned pale in disbelief. Mister? What are you doing? Asura glanced at the floating blue system window and smirked. I refuse to follow the commands of some ridiculous blue window like you do, kid. He clenched his fist tightly, the morals of the Jianghu. Then, with another punch, he struck the blue system screen itself. Crack. The system window shattered like glass. Immediately, an alarm-like notification echoed through the tower. Error, a system error has occurred within the quest. Asura smiled fearlessly, I'll correct them in my own way. Another warning appeared instantly afterward. The players have deviated from the designated quest path. Yuda stared at the blue system window in confusion. Deviated from the quest path. Wait, what happens now? Don't tell me, the quest is completely gone. Nova shook his head. No, the quest itself is still active, Yuda. This massive world you see before you is part of the world inside the quest created by the successor. If the quest had truly disappeared, this world would have vanished along with it. Yuda frowned. So even though the system window broke and we deviated from the path, you're saying the quest is still ongoing? He clenched his fist as realization struck him. Which means, if we can somehow restore justice to the Jianghu, we can still move on to the next stage. Meanwhile, members of the Namgong clan whispered among themselves, what is going on here? How is the rising star of the Namgong clan being treated like this by some strange ruffian? Suddenly, Asura raised his voice and shouted, listen well, all of you. I understand the grudge you bastards hold against this woman. And I know you even held a duel to the death to settle it. His eyes narrowed sharply. However, a duel to the death is a battle where lives are on the line, so it must be fought under fair conditions. To carry out a duel against an injured person, goes against the morals of the Jianghu. The members of the Namgong clan began whispering again. An injured person? Now that he mentions it. There are bloodstains near that woman. Namgung Jinhui shouted angrily, don't make me laugh. Who do you think you are to dare speak about the morals of the Jianghu? He pointed furiously at the woman. The reason that woman was injured is because she betrayed our clan and tried to steal the demonic manual. Normally, such a crime is punished by immediate execution. His expression twisted with rage. However, because of the bond we once shared with her, I allowed her to meet an honorable death through a duel to the death. From the very beginning, this duel was meant to execute that wicked witch. Before he could finish, Asura interrupted coldly. Honorable death? Nonsense. I've heard quite enough of this bullshit. He stepped forward, glaring directly at Jinhui. From the sound of it, you weren't trying to hold a duel to the death. You were simply trying to murder someone weaker than you. Then Asura pointed a finger at Namgung Jinhui. A bastard who doesn't even have the resolve to risk his own life dares to speak of a duel to the death. Are all the rising stars of the Namgung clan as cowardly as you? Namgung Jinhui gritted his teeth in fury. You. Just because you have a mouth, you dare spout such nonsense. Stop right there, Jinhui. A calm but authoritative voice interrupted him. Jinhui's face instantly paled. He quickly dropped to his knees and bowed. Patriarch. Why has the Patriarch come all the way to the sparring arena? The Patriarch looked at him sternly before speaking. That nameless man's words are correct. A duel to the death is, by its very nature, a sparring match that decides life and death. Therefore, facing an injured opponent in such a duel is far removed from the moral code of the Jianghu. He stroked his beard calmly. Furthermore, if rumors were to spread that our Namgung clan conducted such a duel, we would be unable to avoid criticism from the other noble clans. The Patriarch then declared, therefore, this duel to the death shall be postponed for 15 days. By then, that woman's injuries should have healed. Namgung Jinhui looked shocked. But, Patriarch, what if that woman tries to run away? The Patriarch chuckled softly while rubbing his beard. Do not worry about that. While her body heals, I will have her stay at the clan's guest house. He looked around at everyone present. With this, neither side should have any complaints, I assume. Asura smirked, none here. Good, the Patriarch replied. In that case, all of you should stay at our guest house for the time being as well. With a warm smile, he continued, even though you have traveled from a faraway land. Consider yourselves family while you remain here. Please, make yourselves at home. Yuda blinked in confusion before replying nervously, thank you. Inside, however, he was completely bewildered. What kind of development is this? A sudden reconciliation, the Patriarch then looked at Asura and Yuda. First, you should change out of those clothes. You cannot walk around forever in such strange attire, can you? Yuda quickly nodded. Ah, yes. We should. Meanwhile, Namgung Jinhui clenched his teeth angrily as he stared at So Yanawa. So Yanawa, why on earth did you betray me? Inside the Namgung clan's meeting hall, the martial hall master, Namgung Biko, clenched his fist angrily and shouted, how could you allow a remnant of the unorthodox faction, someone who tried to steal the demonic manual, to stay in the clan's guest house? The Namgung clan Patriarch glared at him sharply, you are too loud, little brother. Can you not show me proper respect? Hearing this, Namgung Biko immediately lowered his head, my apologies. Behind them, the leader of the Namgung clan, Namgung Yul, spoke in a calm but serious tone. We may have avoided the dishonor of holding a duel to the death against an injured opponent, but bringing a remnant of the Black Moon sect into our home will still cause trouble if news of it reaches the Martial Alliance. He continued, I highly respect your noble heart for showing mercy to an enemy. However, mercy must also depend on the one receiving it. Then the internal hall master, Namgung Bakiam, added, that is correct. Furthermore, that boy Jinhui still appears to have feelings for that woman. He narrowed his eyes thoughtfully. The duel to the death he arranged this time likely stemmed from his desire to believe in her until the very end. His expression hardened. The sword of the most likely heir to the Namgung clan should not be swayed by a mere woman of the unorthodox faction, should it? Another elder immediately spoke with urgency, that's right. Before this matter escalates any further, we must execute that woman at once. The Patriarch then turned toward the eldest daughter of the Namgung clan. What are your thoughts, Siola? Since you have been with those two children since they were young, you should understand this situation better than anyone. Namgung Siola answered calmly, though her voice carried hesitation. It is true that Jinhui feels betrayed by Yanawa, because he trusted her deeply. Even now, he is suffering greatly because of it. She lowered her gaze slightly. The fact that she approached the Namgung clan with the intention of stealing the sealed demonic martial arts manual is something he simply cannot accept. After a brief pause, she continued softly, but I also do not believe Yanhwa is such a terrible person. The patriarch looked surprised. And what is your reasoning for that? Seola hesitated before answering nervously, it's just a feeling. The look in Yanhwa's eyes when she gazed at Jinhui. Her expression grew complicated. They somehow seemed sorrowful. Inside the guest hall of the Namgung clan, Yanhwa sat quietly in her chair before speaking to Yuda. I do not know how I can ever repay this debt. She lowered her head sadly. I am truly and sincerely grateful, martial artists from a faraway foreign land. Yuda quickly waved his hands awkwardly. Ah, no need for that. We were just trying to restore proper justice to the Jianhu. He then looked at her with concern, are your injuries okay? After a brief pause, Yuda asked curiously, by the way, what exactly happened? From what I heard from the people around here, it sounded like you were being treated as a thief. Then he added seriously, before you go through with that duel to the death against that man. We need to clear up this misunderstanding about you stealing the demonic manual. Yanhwa quietly spoke up. No. It is true that I tried to steal the demonic manual. Hearing that, Yuda froze in shock. Huh? He stared at her in disbelief before speaking nervously, then, what that man said, all of it is true. Yanhwa slowly nodded. Yes. It is the truth. Yuda was stunned once again. What is wrong with this woman? So she really was a wicked woman? Then what was the point of us saving her? However, Yanhwa continued calmly, everything they said earlier is true. But the Black Moon sect is not merely an evil group that worships demonic arts. Her expression turned serious. While I cannot reveal all of the Black Moon sect secrets at this time, there is one thing I can tell you foreigners. She took a slow breath before continuing. The reason I approached the Namgung clan was because I was trying to prevent the birth of the heavenly demon. Yuda and Nova were both shocked, the heavenly demon. Yuda thought in confusion. Meanwhile, deep into the night outside the guest room, two figures silently appeared with their faces covered. A murderous aura surrounded them, making it obvious they were assassins. One of them slowly drew his sword beneath the moonlight. Yuda couldn't believe what he had just heard. The heavenly demon, he muttered in disbelief. Like the one from those martial arts novels? Curious, he waved his hand and asked, are you talking about the leader of the demonic cult? Then realization struck him, so the reason you tried to steal the demonic manual, Yoa, was to stop the birth of the heavenly demon? Yoa lowered her head slightly, that is correct. Yuda frowned, if that's really true, couldn't you have told people from the start? He asked thoughtfully, rubbing his chin. At the very least, they wouldn't have treated you like a thief, right? Yoa's expression darkened. I couldn't do that, she replied sadly. To stop the birth of the heavenly demon, this mission must be carried out in absolute secrecy. As they spoke, two figures suddenly burst through the window. Crash! The assassins rushed into the room. One of them immediately charged forward, sword in hand, using a high-speed assassination technique. Yuda's eyes widened in shock. Assassins, he thought. Or mercenaries sent by another family, and Mr. just happened to step away, why now of all times? The assassin swung his sword. Yuda instantly summoned his weapon through the blue system window and barely managed to block the attack. Clang! The force of the impact pushed him back. Without hesitation, the assassin raised his sword again and launched another strike. Yuda quickly dodged and shifted his position. Gripping his sword tightly, he infused it with holy light. A brilliant glow enveloped the blade. Ha! He swung. The holy energy collided with the assassin's sword. Boom! The assassin barely avoided the attack, but the shockwave sent him sliding backward. Landing a short distance away, the assassin steadied himself and prepared for another assault. Yuda pointed his sword at him. Just who the hell are you guys? He demanded. Why show up in the middle of the night and attack us out of nowhere? The assassin narrowed his eyes. I heard we only needed to watch out for that muscular freak, he said. But it seems your swordsmanship is quite impressive too. A cruel smile appeared on his face. I was getting bored of repeating the same assassination work over and over. This should be entertaining. Yuda remained on guard. The assassin poured mana into his sword. For you especially, he said coldly. I'll take my time and savor killing you. Yuda's eyes narrowed. A shallow cut from the assassin's earlier attack stretched across his face. If I hadn't dodged that first strike, he thought, I would have died on the spot. The old me wouldn't have even lasted 10 seconds against someone like him. Suddenly, the assassin rushed forward. Yuda stood his ground. Their swords collided as both fighters pushed against each other with all their strength. At that moment, the second assassin silently moved behind Yuta. Yuta sensed the danger and his eyes widened. Damn it, I was so focused on him that I lost track of the other one. The two assassins activated their assassination techniques simultaneously. Both swords flashed. Blood sprayed into the air. Yuta screamed in pain as deep wounds opened across his body, blood stained his clothes and trickled from the corner of his mouth. Nearby, Nova clenched both fists tightly. Yuta, she shouted in panic. The first assassin glanced at Yuta and smirked. Oops. I was planning to enjoy this myself, he mocked. But my dear little brother couldn't hold back and jumped in. His eyes turned cold. Well, since it's come to this, I'll just slice you up quickly and get it over with. He raised his sword. We don't hold any personal grudge against you, so don't resent us too much. Yuta staggered backward, clutching his wounds as blood continued to drip from his mouth. On the other side, the second assassin raised his blade. That woman, he said. She must die by the sword of the Namgung clan. Just as he was about to strike, footsteps echoed through the room, a calm voice followed. What exactly are you doing? Everyone froze. Asura stepped into the room. His gaze swept across the destroyed lodging, then he sighed. In the short time I stepped away, he said coldly, you managed to turn my lodgings into such a mess. Unbelievable. Seeing Asura, the first assassin quickly felt a surge of panic. He pushed himself backward, his eyes wide open in shock. Why? Why is that guy here? Cold sweat dripped down his face as a terrifying thought crossed his mind. If things had gone according to plan, he should have already met his end too, shouldn't he? Could it be? Did he really take care of all those top-tier assassins from the Red Blood Mountain entirely on his own? Brother Jiangdu. I will handle this freak, the second assassin shouted. Before he could finish, a hand sliced through the air alone with blade. Asura had casually used his palm to sever the man's arm clean off. The severed limb, still gripping the sword, flew through the air and landed with a wet thud right in front of Jiangdu. The sight left Jiangdu frozen in horror. Asura's expression darkened. You'd better not cause any more commotion in my lodgings, he said coldly. The stench of your blood would keep me from sleeping. The second assassin stared at his bleeding stump in disbelief. When did he take my arm? Jiangdu, standing behind him, broke into a cold sweat. Damn it. That idiot. I warned him multiple times not to face that monster alone. His eyes were wide with terror. The mission has completely failed. I must report back to Lord Iri. Before it's too late. Meanwhile, Asura smirked at Jiangdu. You have the terrified look of someone who finally knows their place. His expression then turned deadly serious. Despite casually taking the lives of others, you still desperately want to preserve your own? What are you talking about? Jiangdu shouted nervously. It is not too late, Asura continued. Assassin of unknown name and origin, if you drop to your knees and beg for forgiveness, I will spare your pathetic life for now. Otherwise, I will immediately carve out your innards. Jiangdu paused for a moment, then gripped his sword tightly. A nervous laugh escaped him. How dare you treat an assassin of the Red Blood Mountain like some neighborhood mutt? In a burst of speed, he used his assassin techniques to close the distance. Even if I don't face you myself, tying your feet down is a piece of cake. He grabbed Yoa by the neck and pressed his sword against her throat. She gasped in shock. Asura's expression turned ice cold as he narrowed his eyes. Jiangdu laughed triumphantly. Now that arrogant face of yours is finally worth looking at. No matter how much of a Murim expert you might be, what can you even do in a situation like this? Take even a single step and blood will spout from this wench's neck. Before he could finish, another arm, still clutching a sword, flew into the air. Jiangdu stared in shock as his own arm was severed. Yoa's eyes widened in disbelief as well. Blood sprayed across the floor. You crazy bastard. What just happened? Jiangdu screamed, clutching his bleeding stump. He didn't even move. So why is my hand? Asura raised his fist, flames burning fiercely around it. A martial art like this is unheard of. Jiangdu thought in terror. Never in my life have I seen such a thing. Asura stepped forward. It seems you don't understand when I ask nicely. That goes for both you and that rising star of the Namgung clan. He cracked his knuckles, his cold eyes locked onto his prey. I didn't want to see blood splattered all over my lodgings. But it can't be helped. Asura clenched both fists. As promised, I will now carve out your innards. This wasn't an opponent we could do anything against. Jiangdu thought, fear gripping his heart. I knew he wasn't an ordinary martial artist, but to think he was an expert at this level. Since it's come to this, I have no choice. I'll have to use my trump card against this monster. He suddenly dropped to his knees, tears streaming down his face. I have committed a grave sin, brother. Yoa and Yuta stared in surprise. Even Asura looked momentarily confused. Crying hysterically, Jangda begged, I will never act up in front of you again, brother. I will tell you whatever you want to know. So please. Spare my life. Please let me live. I'm falling to my knees and begging for mercy. As the captured assassin, Jangdu, surrendered himself, Asura began questioning him. So, you're assassins from Red Blood Mountain? Asura asked coldly. And those men collapsed beside the outhouse, are they from Red Blood Mountain as well? Jangdu trembled and quickly nodded. Yes, that's right, sir. They're all outstanding top-tier assassins. Before he could finish, Asura's eyes narrowed sharply. Shut your mouth, punk. Just answer the questions you're asked. Jangdu immediately fell silent. I'm sorry. Folding his arms, Asura stared directly at him. Elite, top-tier, second-rate. I couldn't care less about rankings. Tell me this instead, why are you after this woman's life? Jangdu hesitated before answering. Actually, she wasn't our target to begin with. We were sent after you, Sir Asura, and the man beside you. Asura's expression darkened. You were after me and him? Jangdu hurriedly raised both hands. We were only following orders. Even if it cost me my life, I wouldn't dare try it now, so please don't misunderstand. Sitting nearby, Yuda spoke up curiously. Then what were you planning to do with Miss So Yanhwa after killing us? Earlier, you said something about her having to die by the Namgon clan's sword. Wasn't that it? Jangdu lowered his gaze. That's. After a brief pause, he let out a sigh. You know how it is for assassins like us. We receive orders, and we follow them. His voice grew somewhat bitter. The only thing I know is that the client wanted the duel to the death to continue. Because of that, anyone who seemed likely to interfere was to be eliminated without exception. That was the entirety of our orders. Yuta frowned. They want the duel to the death to continue, but why? That's exactly what I don't understand, Jangdu replied. If killing that woman was the real goal, they could have done it directly. But the client only wants one thing, to ensure the duel continues until So Yanhwa dies at the hands of the Namgon clan. Asura placed a hand on his chin, deep in thought. This so-called client of yours, who are they? Jangda shook his head helplessly. Like I said, assassins aren't told anything important beyond the mission details. Then he spoke with unexpected sincerity. Sir, if I had known who assigned such a disrespectful mission against you, I would have hunted that bastard down myself and killed him. Enough of the nonsense, Asura said flatly. Silence fell over the group. Yuda's expression turned serious. If what this man says is true, then this duel to the death was carefully orchestrated by someone from the very beginning. I don't know why they're trying to kill Miss So Yanhwa through the duel, but there's one thing I can guess. His eyes narrowed. This duel to the death is deeply connected to the birth of the heavenly demon. Outside the guest house, a figure sat atop a tree branch, silently observing the situation below. His gaze swept across the area before stopping on something unusual. Numerous assassins lay collapsed on the ground. Is this all the work of that man? He wondered. I didn't expect this at all. A smirk appeared on his face. Did they call him Asura? The smirk slowly widened into a crazed grin. It's been a long time since I've found such interesting prey. The next morning, a man stood before the Namgon clan patriarch, delivering his report. The man was none other than Namgon clan's chief guardian, Chong Mugong. Patriarch, he began respectfully, last night, we discovered multiple assassin corpses near the eastern guest house. The patriarch's expression stiffened slightly. Chong Mugong continued. The bodies were heavily mutilated, making it impossible to identify which sect or organization they belonged to. However, based on the circumstances, it is presumed that they were targeting So Yanhwa and the foreigner staying with her at the guest house. The patriarch stroked his beard thoughtfully. Did someone erase their tracks? That is highly likely, Chong Mugong replied. There were no crests, symbols, or identifying marks left on any of the bodies. The patriarch fell silent for a moment before speaking. From now on, double the security around the eastern guest house. As long as they remain within our family's estate, no one will be allowed to harm them. Chong Mugong immediately clasped his fists and bowed. Understood, patriarch. After receiving his orders, he turned and left the room. As he walked through the estate grounds, countless thoughts raced through his mind. The wounds on the assassins had all been completely different. One had a broken neck, another had a crushed sternum, a third had died from ruptured internal organs. Yet despite their different injuries, they all shared one thing in common. None of them had managed to put up a proper fight. Chong Mugong narrowed his eyes. It's as though he detected them before they could even get close, and killed every one of them without giving them a chance to resist. His expression grew increasingly serious. Just how high has that man's martial prowess reached for something like this to be possible? His fist tightened unconsciously. As expected, he is far too dangerous to be left unchecked within the main estate's guesthouse. His eyes hardened with determination. Before our family's duel to the death resumes, I will personally confirm whether he is a friend or a foe. Meanwhile, Yuda stood in the training yard with his sword firmly in hand, while Nova watched from behind. A brilliant holy light gathered around the blade as Yuda channeled his energy into it. He held the stance for several moments, concentrating every ounce of strength he could muster. Then, in an instant, he swung. A dazzling arc of light flashed through the air. After the strike, Yuda exhaled heavily. Steam rose from his body as sweat dripped down his face. Nova looked at him with concern. Yuda, your wounds haven't even fully healed yet. Don't push yourself too hard. Yuda smiled faintly. There's still plenty of time before Yanowa's duel to the death resumes, isn't there? His expression soon turned serious. I nearly lost my life to those assassins. Ever since Mr. Asura smashed the quest window, quests no longer reset. He lowered his gaze to his sword. That means we only have one life left in this tower now, right? After sheathing his blade, he continued. That's why I need to prepare for every possibility. I have to become even stronger than I am now. Nova lowered her eyes sadly. Yuda. Before she could say anything else, Yuda changed the subject. By the way, have you figured out who the successor of this tower is? Setting the quests aside for now, we still need to identify the successor. Otherwise, we won't be able to obtain the successor's power. Nova raised her hand and gathered her searching ability into her palm. About that. She hesitated. I'm not entirely sure myself. I can sense the successor's power, but I can't determine exactly where it's coming from. Yuda stared at her in disbelief. What? Even you can't find it with your abilities? Nova nodded. I think the successor of this tower may have already completed the successor's ritual. Yuda's eyes widened. What do you mean? Unlike the other towers we've visited so far, Nova explained, the successor's power in this tower isn't concentrated in a single person. Instead, it's spread throughout the entire structure. Yuda was stunned. The successor's power is spread throughout the entire tower. He frowned. What does that even mean? Nova folded her arms and thought for a moment before answering. Yuda, you probably don't know this, but the worlds inside the towers are originally created from someone's memories. Yuda listened silently. Depending on who receives the successor's quest, the world inside a tower can branch into completely different paths. She continued, the previous successors we encountered were still progressing through their quests. That's why we were able to sense a powerful successor's aura coming from a specific individual. Nova's expression grew solemn. But in this tower, the successor's presence can be felt everywhere. Yuda's face stiffened. If that's true. Nova slowly nodded. Then the successor of this tower has most likely already completed the successor's quest. A heavy silence followed. And if my theory is correct, her eyes swept across the surrounding world. The successor didn't simply inherit the tower's power. She paused before delivering her conclusion. They became one with it. The successor of this tower has become the tower's world itself. Yuda looked at Nova and said, I still don't really understand what you're talking about. The successor is, this massive world itself? So, are you saying that we have to destroy this entire world to obtain the successor's power? Nova placed a hand on her chin and replied, that's not exactly what I meant. Like I said earlier, this world is another virtual reality created from someone's memories. She waved both hands as she continued, the fact that the successor went out of their way to build this world inside the tower means there's definitely something they want from the players. Yuda murmured, something, the successor wants from the players. Lowering his head, he thought. Yeah, you're right. Now that I think about it, this tower gave us a specific quest the moment we entered. If Nova is right, and this world exists within the successor's memories, then perhaps the successor is using this quest to resolve an event they couldn't fix in the past. But what exactly does the successor mean by, the way of Jianghu? If there had been a clearer explanation, it would have been much easier to complete the quest. Whatever the case, if we want to obtain the successor's power, we have to progress through the quest in the direction the successor desires. Yanowa stole the demonic manual to prevent the birth of the heavenly demon, while Namgong Jinhui intends to fight her in a duel to the death. Perhaps the successor of this tower is. Suddenly, a voice echoed from behind him. Senior brother Yuda. So this is where you were. Yuda turned around in surprise as Jiangdu came running toward him with a worried expression. Oh, you're here? Yuda said. But since when did I become your senior brother? Jiangdu smiled awkwardly. Why would you say something so hurtful? Since we share the same master, of course I should call you senior brother. Yuda looked at him in disbelief. Is that so? He did spare me, but I doubt he actually accepted me as his disciple. Anyway, Yuda asked, why were you looking for me in such a hurry? Did something happen? I told you to stay hidden in the guest house since there are too many eyes watching. Jiangdu's expression turned serious. Well, about that. As you instructed, senior brother, I stayed quietly inside the guest house. Then a man who appeared to be the chief guardian came looking for Master. The chief guardian? Yuda asked in surprise. Yes, Jangdu replied. I immediately concealed my presence and hid myself, so thankfully he didn't discover me. But I heard everything he said to Master with my own ears, the chief guardian said. Last night, near the guest house, I found the bodies of several top-tier assassins. The martial arts used to kill them were certainly not those of an ordinary martial artist. I do not intend to disrespect you, but I cannot allow an expert of unknown origin to remain in the guest house without suspicion, Jangdu continued, so, I have a proposal. Would you care to exchange a few moves with me? After explaining everything he had overheard, Jangdu added, then the two of them left the guest house. It seems Master accepted the chief guardian's challenge. Yuda folded his arms and smiled confidently. Seriously? That's what had you so worried? He chuckled, I thought something major had happened. I get it now. You can go back. And from now on, don't come looking for me over something so trivial. Jangdu's eyes widened in shock, but, senior brother. No matter how strong Master is, his opponent is the chief guardian of the Namgung clan. If Master rashly accepted that sparring match, who knows what might happen to him? Yuda simply smiled. You still don't know Mr. very well, do you? Do you honestly think that guy, whether he's the chief guardian or anyone else, can defeat Mr., no matter which supreme master this world has to offer? They can never defeat Mr. As Asura and the chief guardian arrived at the sparring grounds, they stood facing one another with their swords drawn. The air itself grew heavy under the overwhelming pressure radiating from both warriors. The chief guardian stepped forward and spoke calmly, before we begin this sparring match, I will ask you one last time. He raised his sword, pointing its tip directly at Asura. For what reason are you interfering in our clan's duel to the death? Asura simply smiled. Is that any of your business? Cut the chatter and come at me already. The chief guardian closed his eyes for a moment and muttered, as expected, you won't reveal your identity so easily. He lowered his blade and nodded. Very well. Once our swords cross, I will learn what kind of man you truly are. In an instant, he burst forward with incredible speed. I won't hold back. Holding his sword firmly, the chief guardian unleashed his technique, Chonggang Guardian Sword Art, Divine Fifth Form, Iron Flow Chaotic Slash. His blade tore through the air with tremendous force. Yet Asura remained perfectly calm. With a single effortless step to the side, he avoided the attack completely while keeping his eyes fixed on the chief guardian's every movement. Without hesitation, the chief guardian raised his sword high once again, gathering immense sword pressure. He lowered his stance, sect-breaking flash. His blade flashed downward. Asura smiled. He coated his sword in blazing flames. Asura style, secret technique, Asura destroying sword. The two swords collided violently. A tremendous shockwave erupted across the arena, forcing the chief guardian several steps backward. He dug his feet into the ground to stop himself, his eyes widening in surprise. Asura rested his sword on his shoulder and chuckled. It's been a while since I've used a sword, so I'm a little rusty, he grinned. But this is quite amusing in its own way. Entertain me a little more. Chief guardian of the Namgung clan, the chief guardian fell silent. I can't predict this man's martial arts at all, his eyes narrowed. His stance is filled with openings, yet somehow, there isn't a single place where I can land my sword. If that's the case, I'll create one myself. He disappeared from his position and dashed toward Asura with explosive speed. As the distance between them vanished, the pressure in the air became almost suffocating. The chief guardian unleashed a relentless barrage of sword strikes from unpredictable angles. However, Asura effortlessly dodged every slash, then. The chief guardian's eyes suddenly lit up. There. He spotted what appeared to be an opening near Asura's neck. Without hesitation, he swung his sword, but before the blade could strike, Asura casually caught it with his bare hand. The chief guardian froze. What? He stopped my sword, with his bare hand? Who in the world is this man? Asura smirked. Raising his flaming sword high into the air, he declared, Asura style, secret technique, world-breaking slash. His sword crashed down with overwhelming force. Boom, the ground split apart beneath the attack. But the chief guardian narrowly avoided the strike, slipping past the blade before rushing forward once more. Asura slowly turned around and smiled. Did you really think you could test me with such a feeble sword? Your stance isn't bad, and your internal energy is quite profound. But with your swordsmanship, you could never reach me. Suddenly, drops of blood fell onto the ground. Asura looked down in surprise. A deep cut had appeared across his arm. How? Standing behind him, the chief guardian calmly lowered his sword. It's true that you are incredibly strong. But I, too, have never let go of my sword for my entire life. After crossing blades with countless experts throughout Mirim, I realized one unchanging truth. He slowly raised his sword once more, no matter how absolute an expert may be. There is always an opening, his sharp gaze locked onto Asura, and your arrogant pride is your greatest opening. Asura remained silent, staring at the chief guardian as the tension between them reached its peak.